Hi, everyone. Good evening. Just want to wrap up the end of this trial before we go to jury instructions, arguments, and jury deliberations tomorrow. Hopefully, this case will be wound up tomorrow. It shouldn't be a case that takes a lot of jury deliberation. It might go into another day, depending how the arguments pan out. But we've had a lot of experts testifying. They've had a lot of experts sort of saying the same thing. That's sort of the gist of what I get from the defense presentation here the last day and a half. And it's just sort of like really, I'm just having toxicology fatigue, this expert fatigue, and all that kind of stuff. I think they're just trying to, the defense is just trying to numb you to the extent that you're just sort of like punch drunk. Your mind is mush. You can't really think about anything. You can't focus on what the prosecution had earlier. You're just worn out really from listening to this stuff, and we're probably more worn out in the sense that we got to listen to all this argument going on without the jury present there as well. So it's very much uh, a time, though. I'm glad to see that this is going to be ending here, and because I don't know how much longer I'd want to cover this case. It's really just uh, really disgusting to see, and I didn't like the fact that I get riled up like I did yesterday a little bit, and but it's it's one of these deals where I expect if there's a victim of a case that's a murder case, I expect the prosecution to have their A game on, to be top tier level trial lawyers, and to really knock it out of the park, leave no stone unturned. And we don't always see that, do we? We've seen scorched earth type of things on some cases, and other cases they're just okay, and other cases, oh, they can be dynamic. So you get the whole gamut here of the different levels of talent there is for the prosecutors. Then defense counsel, we've seen a lot of different stuff in some of these different trials as well. We've seen some really horrible, horrendous defense work. In fact, I guess the only good defense work I've seen is the Karen Reed case. If you stop to think about it, the case I've covered here in the last couple of years. So this is another case where we don't have a lot of great stuff to look at from the defense in terms of advocacy, the their ability to argue and get stuff into evidence and whatnot. Is not premier, but I can say that the one thing they have done good is they've gotten a lot of experts in, and if you don't know how to do a lot of stuff very well, at least if you call experts. I'm a big believer in calling experts on a case if you can. And here they've called in a number of experts to testify, and one of them got struck from testifying. But they've done a lot of effort to get experts prepped on this case. The one thing that really ticks me off, though, is that the prosecution has not brought out the financial motive of these defense experts. Why? Why do we see that? We didn't see that in Karen Reed either. The prosecution experts, they're just doing their job. That's just part of their routine. They work for a medical examiner office for the county or for the state, or you have law enforcement officers. All these people are just doing their job. You have the people at the hospital that get subpoenaed. They're not coming in as an expert, an outside consultant. They're the ones trying to save the life. And so when you have somebody on the outside coming in trying to scrutinize and pick apart things that the experts for the government have done wrong, it's something you need to call them out on. These people are trying to make a little industry here of being witnesses in trials and making money on it. And it really bothered me yesterday. You had an emergency room physician that's coming from Houston all the way to go to Nashville to testify in a murder case, something that she didn't have anything to do with, her treating Jade Benning at all and her baby Ivy. So why would she leave her clients, her practice, to do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think you need to consider the motives of all witnesses. And if there's a financial motive on the other side, no matter what side you're on, if there's a financial motive for a witness, they're making more money, then you need to bring that out. If there's for example, I'm just thinking of a case where when I was doing defense work, there's a cop that was notorious for pulling people over on trumped up reasons. You have to have probable cause to pull a car over, right? And he was just making up reasons to pull people over because I saw this as a pattern and practice in so many different cases with unrelated cases, unrelated defendants. And I realized there's a financial motive. He's down the courthouse all the time waiting to be testifying in a motion to suppress or a jury trial. And what is he getting? Overtime. He's getting all kinds of overtime. And think about it. You can double your income if you're having to go to court a lot to testify. And so anyway, stuff like that. I just think that I'm always looking for that angle. What's the motive? My mindset is everybody has a motive that testifies. I just got to figure out what it is and then see if it aligns with what my case is. And if it's for my case, I need to make sure I bring that out good. And if it's against my case, I need to neutralize and possibly flip them as well. Turn them to my side. Bring out good things to help my case in chief. So anyway, I just think that it's just a crying shame that these guys don't bring out the financial motives of these experts. They're not doing it pro bono. They're not doing it for free, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and go to we don't know how much they're paid. I mean, think about it. That's something they'd have to answer. It's perfectly legitimate cross-examination question. And what does the prosecution do? They just leave it on the table. They don't even ask it. You know? So therapists, you didn't realize how much you're getting paid. What are they getting paid? I mean, think about it. And if you're like a expert witness being called by the defense, they're giving you a packet of information. Unless you give them something meaty to find fault with the government's witnesses, they're not going to call you. You're not going to get your big fee to go drive or fly to someplace and sit there for a day or two to testify. So you got to give them something to make it worth their while. Otherwise, I can't find anything wrong with it. So guess what? You're not going to be called as a witness. You're not going to make the big bucks. So, and think about it. If you're an emergency room physician, you're probably making $500,000-$600,000 minimum. Why would you leave that practice, leaving your other colleagues to pick up your work, or you're working overtime to work that? So you would think that you want a lot more than what your hourly rate is at the hospital. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff I'd be really having a fun time if I was a prosecutor, poking around, snooping about what these guys and what's their real motives. Obviously financial. They're not doing it because they're worried about justice and injustice happening. So anyway, I think that the prosecution, they got to do a good job on their closing, and they need to tie all the loose ends together. They need to tie in the demeanor of the defendant. That's really key here. This whole stuff about that all the defense is trying to do this smoke and mirrors on. It's like, oh, well, what kind of drug was in her system, and where was it at on the comforter, and all this kind of stuff. The bottom line is it was enough to kill her, whatever it was. And whatever the concoction breakdown is, somebody spiked her drink to get her killed. Okay. And there's only one person in the room, and that's what the prosecution needs to focus on. And if you want corroboration of how that happened, listen to the very words of Jade herself, where she confronted the defendant. She was on the phone dying. And what is he doing? He hasn't called 911 yet. Right there, it answers to everything, I think, for the jury. They need to focus on that. Focus on how much time elapsed with her on the call. Granted, Ms. Jackson didn't call 911 like she should have, but you know what? She wasn't right there to see what's going on. And if you really think that the defendant had no idea where he was at, really, I'm on Lebanon Pike at the Ontario. That's all he had to say. He doesn't need to know the block number. That's all he had to say. We're in apartment 1026 or whatever it is. That's all he had to say. So anyway, they just better really call out the shenanigans by the defense. And then they, why are they never asked them, why didn't you create a report, right? Why didn't you generate a report of what was wrong? Well, if the general report was wrong, then that would give the opportunity to more opportunity for the prosecution to counter it, right? So what they're trying to do is just drive by, rush motif, hold up the jury. That's the kind of stuff I'd call them out on. I'd call them out in front of the jury. The jury doesn't really understand the fact that these reports weren't brought out. They didn't even do a report, and their notes were just done in the last second. Some of them, and so anyway, I just don't see the prosecution having that killer instinct like I would like to see them have. So, yeah, that's true. Defense told him not to write a report. Remember when that came up yesterday? What did Letitia Holland say? Objection, objection. That's attorney-client privilege. No, it's not. I mean, she's just throwing stuff out of thin air. And you know what? The prosecution didn't call her out on it, and neither did the judge. So she's outslicked him another number of times, and I just hope it doesn't hurt justice in this case. So this is the prosecutors to lose. So if they don't nail it tomorrow, then yeah. So I do have some concerns about this case I didn't have before. Yeah, Arnold Cohen, you're saying in the Karen Reed case, prosecution made a big deal about what ARCO is being paid. The prosecution in this case is weak, and the judge allows the defense to run the courtroom and be disrespectful. Yeah, that's one way I would say is pretty accurate. Today wasn't as bad as yesterday on the controlling of the courtroom and looking down at the judge and pushing him around like it was yesterday. Deanna, you can't believe the judge letting the defense slide on. Yeah, I mean, the judge is really sharp. He really listens to what the witnesses are saying, and he calls her out on stuff, but he never calls her out as an attorney not being direct and straight up with him on stuff, on the slick stuff she's doing. So it's just really gives you a lot of heartache to see that. Patricia, you think the prosecution has missed quite a few chances? Your opinion? The defense scored some points here. Yeah, Rachel, you're saying the notes were to prove they actually reviewed things. I think automatically you're going to take some notes. I mean, I don't think any expert's going to go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages and not take any notes, right? Things that they want to jot down, things they want to recall. Anybody's going to do that. Just like any attorney looking over a case file, they're going to be taking notes. Same thing with an expert witness. But yeah, defense told them not to create any reports. So, but did that come out to the jury? Therapist, prosecution is not objecting, feels strategic. Could it be, or just mistakes on their part? I think it's mistakes on their part. A lot of prosecutors are cookie cutter. They have the same routine. They don't get enough detail. They don't know how to counter the slickster shenanigans by the defense, and they can lose cases that way. Okay, so now some defense shenanigans are just like not very strategic. They're not very good at being slicksters about it. I'm thinking like the Charlie Adelson case with Rashbaum. He wasn't really doing a lot of stuff to trip up the prosecution, twisting stuff around and whatnot. You see a lot of that here, though. Yeah, Robin, you're saying ask about each expert. Did you create other reports? That's the kind of stuff you could do. How often do you testify for the defense in a criminal case? Guess what? If they're prosecution teams, they don't need experts like this. It's always going to be the defense, unless it's civil litigation having to do with some kind of wrongful death suit or something like that. Then maybe they'll testify their plaintiff one time or defendant another time. But when you're talking about a criminal case, by and large, the prosecution offices, across America do not call independent experts unless their own expert doesn't have that kind of specialty. Sometimes you may have, for example, I had a murder case one time up in Dallas many years ago, and I remember for the blood spatter expert, they didn't bring in the Texas Rangers. They brought in this guy that travels around the nation, is a foremost expert in blood spattering. And so something like that you can see once a great while. But here, in this particular case, with the experts they had, yeah, get in those kind of details. Isn't it true that every time you testify, it's been for the defense and never for the prosecution? And then sort of go so that so basically you're making money testifying against the government's state experts, right? So let them sort of see it for what it is that way. But no, they just don't have that kind of cutthroat mindset. Mr. Kerviel, we need to get a lot of people to get away from this notion that if it's not on the video, there is reasonable doubt. It's like some people just cannot critically think anymore. Yeah, so if the defense has said, well, there's no evidence linking him directly to the drugs, the defendant. Okay, well, there doesn't need to be, like the judge said, there doesn't need to be. So the circumstantial evidence is pretty clear cut. So yeah, that's sort of the CSI mindset. A lot of people think, you need all this science stuff like that. But look what we have here. All this medical stuff is supposed to be a science, but yet what do we have? Difference of opinions and how things should work and what this reading means and what these, how much was ingested and what we think about. A lot of this is so subjective as well. So anyway, science is sort of malleable, right? So depending on who's making what money. And yeah, I agree, Rachel. Common sense goes a long way. The jury has to have common sense and not be tricked by smoke and mirrors of the defense. Joy Moore, sorry. Should we be surprised if Jade may have just had a bit of alcohol in her drink and then defendant added to the drugs? Could it be so? I mean, any of that makes sense. So let me go ahead and jump to what we had today. Sorry, I started a little bit late here today because I'm trying to get this StreamYard thing figured out. The screens are all jacked up. The screen's about half the size it's supposed to be, and so it just makes it a lot more difficult to work through this. But just trying to do a workaround here now. So instead of doing court TV, I decided to go here to the this other law and crime channel. So all right, let's take it from here.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Sure.
Judge Lindsay?
Yeah, you're right about that, Patricia. A lot of bots, defense plants, trolls.
Good morning, Dr. Lindsay.
Good morning.
Could you please state and spell
I'll be looking for trolls here tonight as well.
your name for the record, please?
Dr. Jancy Chun Lindsay, JANCI CHUNN
And how are you employed, Dr. Lindsay?
I have my own consulting, toxicology, and molecular biology business, Toxicology Support Services, LLC.
And how long have you owned your own business?
Okay, but you know what she's not saying where it's at. I'm thinking that's intentional. They're trying to hide the fact that almost everybody's from Texas. It's like the Texas Twister defense. Twists all the little minutia details around, confuse the jury.
Since mid-2009.
And could you give the court information in regards to your educational background?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in biological and physical sciences. I have a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry.
Okay, and could you tell the court exactly when and where did you start working as a toxicologist?
I started working in the laboratory formally as a toxicologist most of my
I'm gonna speed
research
this up.
over the years. I worked in a lab
Okay.
before going back to get my PhD, in between my bachelor's degree and my PhD, as a lab technician at the bench. And I was able to do a lot of toxicology research and even publish as a technician, which was really great. It helped me get into graduate school. But I started doing toxicology research then, and then I was hired directly after my PhD into Exponent Scientific Consulting Group as a toxicologist in their toxicology and mechanistic biology division.
Very good. And have you had the opportunity to be published or have any articles published?
I have.
And have you had the opportunity to testify prior to today and be deemed as an expert?
Yes, many times over the past 20 years.
Would that be civil and criminal or both?
Both, and then military case.
Yeah, and what she's not asking is how many times you're testifying for the defense in a criminal case, you know?
Very good. At this time,
That's intentionally left out. They're trying to make her look like she's neutral, unbiased, and both sides call her.
I would tender Dr. Lindsay as an expert and would offer her CV
in the field of
toxicology.
any questions from the state. All right, again, ladies and gentlemen, this witness be allowed to give her expert opinion. You can place such weight on it as you choose to. That is not a big secret to you. Okay.
Dr. Lindsay, have you had the opportunity in this particular case to review any materials as it relates to the case against Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I have.
Can you inform the jury exactly what all materials have you had the opportunity to review?
Yes, I have reviewed the toxicology litigation packets that everybody has been talking about, the detective investigations, the EMS report for Jade Benning, the bond hearing transcript, which had interviews with several of the people that are involved, transcripts from these hearings, all the literature that I brought on the toxicology of both cocaine and fentanyl and them together, the Pandora records, which are the administrative records for all of the medications which Jade received.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're just doing all this technical stuff. They're thinking the more technical data and terminology and opinions and differing opinions, that they think that that's going to help them. So if the jury is not very sharp and they don't have critical thinking, then yeah, that can trip them up.
While she was in the hospital.
Hopefully it won't.
The ME records for Miss Benning and the baby Ivy's autopsy report in Jade's medical records.
Thank you. I want to now draw your attention to toxicology lab report by ENS 23129285.
Yes,
You got that, and it's on the screen beside you as well.
yes, I do have it, thank you.
Do you remember specifically what was tested in this specific lab report?
Yes, this lab report covers the testing of Miss Benning's comforter, the blue comforter from the apartment.
And was there any type of bodily fluid that was found to be on the comforter?
So they had what they looked to be vomit in a section of the comforter that they extracted in order to test that section of the comforter for drugs. And then they chose another section of the comforter as a case blank, which did not appear to have any vomitus on that portion of the comforter.
And what is a case blank, Dr. Lindsay?
So there are several case blanks in these types of tests. There'll be just the homogeneous buffer that they use to extract, and of course it should have nothing in it. And then they'll use an area of the comforter or clothing that they believe does not have any of the liquid item or blood or whatever the matrix is that they're testing, so that can be a blank for them as well. So they'll have just the buffer, and then they'll have what they think is a true blank on the material.
There's been a lot of talk about the word matrix. Will you tell the jury exactly what a matrix is?
So in this case, when we're talking about matrix, we're just talking about whether it's blood or urine or fabric or vomit. That's all it means. It's not meant to be a fancy word.
Now, this jury has heard a lot of science, and I'm sure they don't want to hear a whole lot more.
What is your question?
Could you,
She does some commentary like that. That's not something I think is appropriate, and he calls her out on it in a nice fashion. But yeah, we are getting tired of all this. So I'm glad you decided to scale back and not have any more experts other than her. But she's really painful. This is a whole line of questioning here with this attorney and this toxicology expert. It's just really hard to listen to. I think the jury's like poking their eyes out.
tell us exactly what was found to be positive on this comforter from Ms. Benning's home?
Yes, I can. So on the
I
comforter,
mean, this hasn't been gone over before, really?
we have the presence
Is this new information defense?
of fentanyl. We have the presence of cocaine. We have the presence of the primary metabolite of cocaine, benzoyl-lagochnine. They did not test for EME, but we do have cocoethylene as well, which is what forms when you use cocaine and ethanol at the same time.
And ethanol, would that be alcohol or drink?
Okay, I think she's saying cocaine. It's cocaine. Cocaine. So let's go back and listen to that. That's something that Leslie caught.
But we do have cocoethylene as well,
Yeah.
which is what forms when you use cocaine and ethanol at the same time.
Yeah. So she didn't even know how to pronounce terminology correctly, and the prosecution didn't catch it.
And ethanol, would that be alcohol or drinking alcohol?
Yes, that's correct.
Were there any other substances that were at some point found on this comforter but was later to be determined inconclusive?
Yes,
Do you know what those are?
I believe those were THC, methamphetamines, and I think it was just THC and methamphetamine.
Very good.
Yeah.
But to be fair, they later determined that the spikes, if you will, were not placed in that.
She's
So
testifying.
They could not say affirmatively
Objection.
whether that was so. Is that right?
That's right, and they didn't rerun the test, which they could have done.
You can't give a leading question like that, okay? You're trying to prop her up with your own testimony here.
And they also didn't report those values, yeah.
Okay, and so to be clear, it wasn't that they weren't present, it's just that they did not run the confirmation to get a more definitive result.
Correct. This was the first time they were doing this assay, so they were coming up with a new technique. That's the best way to say it. So it hadn't been validated yet.
And what is an assay?
An assay is just a protocol for how you do something in the lab.
Now, were they able to quantify any of the substances?
Sorry. Goodness.
This
up here. I apologize.
I can't believe they have a big picture there that they allow witnesses to pour their own water. I don't think I've ever seen that before. If it is done, it's pretty rarely. It's just too much of a chance for that to happen.
I got it. Sorry about that. Okay.
Were they able to quantify any of the substances that were found on the comforter?
Well, they purported to be able to quantify them, but not really, because there's no comparative. Since they were doing this for the first time, they had no comparative liquid. They added a buffer, but it's not like it was blood or urine.
Okay, what is she talking about here? You know, the thing is, if you got an expert, you got to spoon feed it for the jury, right? So there's just all this technical stuff that's.
So they added a buffer to it. There's nothing to compare it to in the literature to give it a. So they came up with an amount, but there's no other something in the literature to say if you took this amount of drug and vomited this much on this comfort in this volume, you would have, you know, a certain concentration. So that's why it's really more qualitative, what we call qualitative than quantitative, or semi-quant.
Did you still need the count for you?
Yeah, let court officers.
How many of you think the jury's really listening to this and really understanding what she's saying in detail? They may be listening, but are they really registering it and trying to commit it to memory?
Clean that up for you.
Sorry, that's very disruptive. Apologize. Thank you, sir.
So in regards to the cocaine that was found, how does the cocaine relate to, I think, what
Yeah. Has anybody Googled this expert? I've not Googled it. I don't know where she's from. She doesn't say where she's from.
you call BZE? Can you explain that to the jury?
Sure. So benzoyl-adoquine, or BZE, sometimes called BE, is the major metabolite of cocaine. It's formed when cocaine passes through the liver, as is the next metabolite, EN, the iradoquine methyl ester.
And the
So just rehashing the same old minutia.
and the cocaine, was that found in the vomits?
Yes, it was.
Now let's talk about the fentanyl. Where was the fentanyl found on the comforter?
So it was found in both the vomitus and in the case blank, which
Yeah. It
complicates
must be from
things.
Texas. Yeah.
Why does that complicate things?
Well, because the case blank was supposed to be a case blank. So finding fentanyl on the case blank indicates that there was the presence of fentanyl on the comforter, either from contamination or from prior use.
And did the lab expect to find fentanyl on the case blank?
No, no, it should not have had fentanyl.
What is the purpose of the case blank?
Well, to be a blank area of the substance you're testing, as we kind of went over a minute ago. Yeah.
Is that the purpose to see whether or not the instrument is working properly and things of that nature?
Now that's another blank. So like I said, you'll have like a buffer blank, and then you'll have just another blank for the media that you're using, if that's possible in this type of a fabric test, or maybe you're testing an airbag or something else like that.
Did they rerun that fentanyl to ensure that there was nothing wrong with their instrument and to ensure that the fentanyl that they found outside of the vomitus was in fact a true presence of fentanyl?
I don't remember if they reran that fentanyl, but I know that they validated that the fentanyl was there. Dr. Methune validated that the fentanyl was, or excuse me, Dr. Kolosky from CFSRE, I think, and Dr. Methune from NMS.
And is Dr. Methune the actual forensic toxicologist who in fact performed the testing on this particular comforter?
Yes,
Now I want to bring your attention to the cocaethylene.
yes.
Where was the cocaethylene found?
So the cocoethylene was found in the vomitus, but not in the case blank.
Thank you. And again, no concentrations could be attributed to any of these substances as it relates to the comforter.
Well, comparatively, there's no ability to compare. So it's a semi-quant. They purported to have an amount, but what do you compare it to? That's kind of the problem.
And would that be consistent with Dr. Methune's testimony that you could not give a definitive quantitative value on any of these substances?
Yes.
I now want to draw your attention. Could you, thank you. Do you see what's on the side of you there?
Yes.
And I believe that this would be state's exhibit number 46, I believe. And could you tell us what exactly this is?
It looks like it's the chromatographs from the testing.
Okay. And what is a am I saying that?
The chromatograph?
Chromatographs, what is that?
It's the first part of the testing when you use a chromatography method. They'll say something like, we're going to test by GCMS, gas chromatography mass spectrophotometry. If any of you remember chemistry back in school where you had to go through organic chemistry and identify the compounds, and you might have learned about chromatography and mass spectrophotometry. The mass spec looks at the ion, chromatography looks at where that chemical elutes off of a column. And each chemical has its own kind of signature time where it elutes off of the column. And according to its abundance, it'll make what looks like a mountain peak. And you can measure the area under the curve and compare it to a standard curve to get an idea of the relative abundance of that particular sample.
Now, to be fair, did NMS find that the fentanyl was a number such that it was below the rate of where they would detect it, meaning below the reportable limit?
Below the limit of quantitation or below the limit of detection. Concentration, they've got it highlighted. Yes.
And what does that mean when it's below the level of detection?
Well, they won't record it often. So it's there, but it's not being recorded.
And is that something that's pretty standard in all labs, that before they will actually report something,
I think you're right.
it has to be at a certain level?
Yes,
Everyone's from Texas. Isn't that interesting? All from the Houston area, except that one is from up near, well, at least you got a doctorate in Oklahoma. But yeah, I think that they're all, it's the cluster from Houston.
I think people are probably most familiar with it in alcohol in hospital tests. If you don't have above 10 milligrams, which is about a half a drink for a 150-pound person per deciliter, then they won't report it. Even if you have alcohol in your system, they'll say it's just a negative test.
Very good. Josh, you?
I can tell you that locals, a lot of times, they don't like out-of-towners coming in there. And you hear you got the entire defense team except for one attorney, and you got all these witnesses from Houston. May not play so well.
I want to now bring your attention to work order 23126889. And it is also on the screen.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what exactly is this particular toxicology report testing?
Yes, so this is the blood that was taken at the hospital at 10:31. Unfortunately, it was collected in the wrong type of tube in order to store the blood and the enclosed chemicals properly. Typically, in order to preserve cocaine, which is super susceptible to hydrolysis and degradation, we have to add some sodium fluoride and some other chemicals to keep it stable, or it'll just spontaneously degrade. But they used a clear plastic tube with no sodium fluoride or anything in the tube,
All right.
which is problematic. And then there's the liver tissue from the baby and the homogenate of the liver tissue and buffer from the baby.
And this, you had stated that it was taken at 10:59. Would that be on February 25th of 2023?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't stipulate that.
Would this be at a time when Ms. Benning was actually in Vanderbilt Hospital?
Yes, when she first came to the hospital.
Did this particular test positive for any substances?
Yes, it did. And just let me get mine out because I can see it. So it tested positive for the main metabolite of cocaine, benzoyl at 1,800 nanograms per mil, for cocaine at 78 nanograms per mil, and for agocine methyl ester at 7,800 nanograms per mil, as well as for fluconazole in the baby's tissue, which is an antifungal at microgram per gram. So it was just a presumptive positive.
Yeah, you know what? Alessi, his science specialty is pharmacy, so he would know all these chemicals.
A qualitative, what we call a qual instead of a quantitative.
And do you see whether or not cocaethylene had an indication on this particular test?
So on this particular test, they don't report cocoethylene, but in
See, there she is again. The most frequent word she's saying probably in this trial, she can't even pronounce correctly. It's cocaethylene.
No, they don't. They didn't report cocoethylene in this test.
And do you see whether or not a confirmation test was ran on cocaethylene on the last page of this particular report? It's also on your screen, next to page 3 of 4.
Yes.
Why would a lab run a confirmation test on any substance?
Because they had detected it in the okay, so these are the reporting limits. That actually isn't the actual result. Those are the reporting limits.
But do you see that there was a confirmation test actually ran for cocaethylene?
So they would run a confirmation test if they saw that it was in the first portion of the test, which is usually an immunoassay screen.
And why do they run screens as opposed to just going straight to the confirmation?
Some labs do go straight to the confirmation through something called QTOF. Labs are moving towards that, but it's less expensive to do the ELISA.
And what reason then, if they found cocaethylene or had a detection, why wouldn't they report it?
It may have been below the reporting limit, or their limit of quantitation if it's a quantitative test. So this particular test was a quantitative test. You see everything's reported in quantitative units in nanograms per mil, not just presumptive positive or positive, except for the fluconazole. So if it's below their limit of proper quantitation, that is, if it's off the curve, if it doesn't fit on their curve because it's too low, then they won't report it. Or if it's below their limit of detection for reasonable presence.
Thank you. I want to ask you now a few questions as it relates to the substance, cocaethylene. Could you educate the jury what reasons would cocaethylene appear in any matrix?
So if cocoethylene is there, that indicates that a person has ingested ethanol and cocaine at the same time, and it has gone through the liver. It has to go through the liver to make the cocoethylene. So this isn't something that would spontaneously form in the saliva or just in the blood. It has to go through what we call first pass metabolism.
And let me ask you this. Cocaethylene, I believe you testified before that it was when cocaine and ethanol come together at the exact same time.
Over and over again.
Is there any other reason that would appear?
You know,
No.
if you got a strong defense, you don't need to regurgitate the same stuff over and over again and browbeat the jury with this kind of mind-numbing, boring, waste of time type of testimony.
How long does it take? Well, let me ask you this. We don't see ethanol when you find cocaethylene. What does that mean if cocaethylene is the presence of cocaine and alcohol at the same time? How could you see cocaethylene but not see ethanol?
So the ethanol will bind the cocaine and make cocoethylene, and cocoethylene has a longer half-life than alcohol. So if the alcohol is above the level of the cocaine, then what's ever left over you might measure, but people have an average burn rate of 18 milligrams per deciliter per hour or 0.3 milligrams per minute.
What's your burn rate on expert witness fees? That's what we want to know, and we're not going to find out. That's pretty sad.
Alcohol. So she could have, in a scenario, let's hypothesize a scenario. If she had drank even 4 drinks earlier that day, it would have been completely gone by the time she got to the hospital.
And so can you educate the jury, what is a half-life?
A half-life is the amount of time it takes for a particular chemical to be divided in half in the blood or the urine, depending on which half-life you're looking at, for half of it to dissipate and be gone.
Now, half-lives in terms of what that is for each particular substance, is it different for every substance?
Yes, it is.
Is this a standard accepted practice in toxicology?
Yes, it's at the top of most of the toxicology treatises, I guess you would say, in the Baselt's reference, which is kind of the Bible of toxicology and drugs. It's listed in the top left-hand corner in the literature that I've presented.
What is the half-life for cocaine?
So the half-life for cocaine is pretty short. It's cited as anywhere from 0.3 to an hour.
And I believe you testified that BZE is the first metabolite of cocaine, the parent cocaine.
That's correct, and it has a different half-life than cocaine.
What is the half-life for BZE?
I think it's 1 to 2 hours for BZE.
And does EME have a different half-life than the parent cocaine and BZE?
It does. I don't recall EME's half-life off the top of my head, but it is longer than cocaine, the parent compound, which is why you see the large amounts of metabolite with the smaller amounts of cocaine.
And EME would be the second metabolite that forms after BZE?
Well, they form, I have a chart, they form differently. So BZE and cocaine are not, or BZE and EME are not the only metabolites of cocaine. There are several other metabolites, but those are the main metabolites of cocaine that are formed and measured in the pharmacokinetic studies that we look at to try to get an idea of how much should be in the blood or urine after a person ingests a certain amount.
And what is the half-life of cocaethylene?
So cocoethylene has a longer half-life as well. It's cited as different, anywhere from like 1 to 4 hours, basically. Some say 1 to 2, some say 2 to 4.
do you know what would be the difference as to why it would be 1 hour versus 4 hours?
So
That's a good point. Marijuana is it's testable, yeah, up to 30 days or more, 30 to 45 days. I remember that from the military. So why didn't you have marijuana in her system? She wasn't a habitual user.
individual metabolism.
And that's what they should argue. If she wasn't a habitual user of marijuana, then why would she all of a sudden jump to something like cocaine and fentanyl? It makes no sense because it's not what happened.
Co-ingestants, if a person's taking a particular drug, that can retard the pharmacokinetic profile for that particular drug because drugs use similar enzymes.
Okay, RN Cincy here, you're trying to make some jabs, and I'm going to call you out on it. So expert witnesses don't have to be from Tennessee. Okay, I'm just telling you what jurors think and have opinions on. And I know for a fact a lot of jurors do not like out-of-state lawyers coming into town. We saw the thing happen in the Adelson trial. They had these New Yorkers do jury selection. If you don't understand local culture and customs and the way things go, then you are at a disadvantage. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So you don't have to act like you know more about trial work. So
for cocaine, the main enzyme is CYP3A4, and CYP3A4 is a universal enzyme that metabolizes a lot of drugs, including fentanyl.
And well, let me ask you this, what is pharmacokinetics? You just mentioned that. Could you educate the jury what that is?
So pharmacokinetics is, I guess, the study of the metabolism of a substance and the ability to look at it over time, its decay over time. You can measure the pharmacokinetics if you give a person dose X of a drug and you know what their weight.
okay, R. Cincy, I guess I hit a sore spot with you. You're saying I obviously have no idea what the training requires. I worked in the ER. You work there, okay, but you don't anymore, do you? Are you an expert too? Is that why this is a hot button topic for you? It's a stressful environment, and what they make there has nothing to do with being expert witness. It has to do with what is their motive? Is their motive to help people in the hospital that come into the hospital? Is their motive to go fly around the country and be an expert? Why would you have both those things going on? Did you have people leaving your ER clinic to be an expert, flying away to a couple states away? I doubt it. I'm sure you enjoyed that, didn't you, if they're your colleagues?
It is, and you can estimate their volume, their body volume of blood, then you can graph a curve for how long it should take for that particular drug using the known half-life in different compartmental models to be exited from the body. As long as you don't have some other drugs that are using the same enzyme that are interfering with that curve, which is unfortunately what we have here.
And would that be the equivalent that the jury could probably understand is if someone is pulled over for drinking while driving,
Mhm.
and the police may want to try to figure out.
Okay, I zapped her, but I'll put one last question. And Carl, why does what an ER doctor makes matter to me? It doesn't matter to me. It matters to the jury. Don't you get it? I'm talking about what stuff matters to the jury. How to impeach a witness. You go after motives to make money. Is this witness testifying out of the goodness of her heart? No, she's there for money. Okay, so why don't we get that out of the bag from the get-go, right? But no, you don't want to talk about that. So you're not here. You're just a troll. So I zapped you. So goodbye.
What was his blood alcohol level at a certain time? If they did get it particular. Is that the same as the extrapolation of alcohol to get that quantitative number?
Yes, there's pharmacokinetics for alcohol, and we just discussed them a little bit ago, that 18 milligrams per deciliter per hour burn rate. And I do that all the time.
Okay. And so were you able to guesstimate or try to determine, given the cocaethylene that was found in the vomitus?
Maybe, Megan, don't all experts get paid? I had an expert one time that was a weatherman, and he testified for free because I had an indigent client. He testified for free. What a great guy. And we won the case.
Of this binning, were you able to utilize pharmacokinetics to get an idea as to when you would have thought that this binning would have ingested cocaine and alcohol at the same time?
So I guess, first of all, it's an assumption to say it was an oral. She ingested something orally, right, beyond the alcohol. We don't know for sure with the cocaine. right?
Okay.
And second of all, we have to allow for the pass through the liver for it to show up in the blood. So, we would say in the past few hours.
You say the past few hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, or can you say?
Can't really say.
Who knows?
And is one of the reasons that you can't say is because there, in regards to the vomit, there aren't any numbers that can definitively be determined for that particular test.
Right, we don't have a matrix to compare it to, the blood, right, or the urine.
Right. Over and over and over again. Gosh, don't you want to just poke your eyes out listening to this? My gosh.
What about the
Unbelievable.
blood that was found in 231268889? Are you able in any way to try to determine the pharmacokinetics in that regard?
So this is the tube that didn't have the preservative in it, the plastic sample, and we know that cocaine is very volatile. However, we don't know to the extent that it was volatilized, or hydrolyzed, excuse me, not volatilized. And what I mean by that is I think earlier Dr. Carney tried to infer that Ms. Benning had a 78 cocaine level when she came to the hospital, and then they drew her blood, and then it all just spontaneously hydrolyzed to the tube. And I think that is very incorrect to say. One, it's not possible because cocaine is metabolized so fast. Some of it would have been metabolized already by the time she got to the hospital, no matter when she took it, because at 0.3 to an hour. And two, because these numbers, if I just saw these numbers,
I don't mean to interrupt you. When you say these numbers, are you speaking of the VE at 1800, the cocaine at 78, and the EME at 7800?
yes, the smaller amount of cocaine at 78, the BCE at 1800, and the large amount of EME. If I knew nothing about this case, I would think that this was a person who would use throughout the day and it's stacked because of the large amount of metabolite.
Oh, used throughout the day, really. So that's what you're going to conclude, that's what she really needed to come here for, to say that, you know what, Jade must have been using throughout the day. There's no indications she'd been using since she found out she was pregnant. But you know what, based on what I think, right? So it's all what she thinks. You know what, these experts I would also bring out is that she's not ever studied somebody sitting there using cocaine and then doing testing, blood testing, to see what readouts you get. And if they mix it with alcohol, she's never done a replication, right? Like ARCA, she's never done an ARCA type replication. So it's just.
Now, what does that mean practically for us? And the tube that doesn't have the proper preservative in it. It means we don't know. We don't know what that number should have been. We don't know if it was higher in cocaine and it just hydrolyzed. Or we don't know if it indicates there was stacking or use going on during the day.
Okay. And why don't you
From a
know?
toxicology perspective.
Okay. Why don't you know?
Because there wasn't any preservative in the tube. And so we don't know whether half of it hydrolyzed, all of it hydrolyzed, some of it hydrolyzed.
So are you stating then, Dr. Lindsay, that the pharmacokinetics as it relates to cocaine is determined once that cocaine is preserved properly, and that's when you get.
Yeah, they screwed up so much she put it in writing, right? So she backs it up in writing, her expert opinion.
More definitive numbers.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
And so when Dr. Kotulski stated also that he would not agree to add the EME and the parent cocaine to get a definitive number, you would agree with that?
Yes, but for a different reason. I wouldn't do that in a good cocaine sample.
Okay.
Because they have different molar ratios and different half-lives. So they won't be present in a one-to-one. It's not an apples to apples comparison. You might get a relative sort of abundance.
Being sarcastic.
Or what's better to do is to compare it to what's in the literature when they give measured amounts of cocaine. And then they record what 10 people have in their urine or their blood 2 or 3 hours after they give the dose. And that, I feel like that is a better mechanism to try to get at that.
I don't know the age
Point,
range.
Did you
Has nobody
ever
heard?
review other material and ascertain that 2 days later, Ms. Benning's blood tested positive for cocaine and had a measure of 69 nanograms per milliliters of cocaine?
Yes, I did, which would be pretty impossible by normal pharmacokinetics if the half-life was.
the judge is letting this witness conclusion. The judge is in because number one, the prosecution is not objecting. Number two, it is somewhat cumulative, I would say, but it's a murder case, so you're not going to cut him off. So I don't have any problem with this. I just think from a listener standpoint, it's just very painful. And I think, if you got nothing really to go on that's countering the stuff your client did, then just throw up a whole lot of experts and just do the rope-a-dope. Just make the jury, just make their brain be pulverized into not having good critical thinking skills.
Maintained as it would be with cocaine alone.
What do you mean by that?
She would have had to use an elephant's worth of cocaine at the high end and anywhere from like 6 to 14 8-balls at the low end.
4 to 16 8-balls. What is that?
Okay.
16, yeah.
What is an 8-ball?
And you know what? Right there, I think that helps the prosecution. You really think Jade's going to do that? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you really think Jade's going to take an elephant amount of cocaine knowing that she loves her baby that she's going to have in 4 months? Really? Come on. Nobody's going to buy that.
5 grams of cocaine. And that's the low end. So the pharmacokinetics don't make sense. So why? Why don't they make sense? So the co-ingestion, I'm going to get a little water. I'm not going to spill it this time. Promise. The co-ingestion of fentanyl or the co-use of fentanyl with cocaine, whether it's ingested or not, they both use the same enzyme, that's CYP3A4. They also both inhibit the clearance of each other. So fentanyl inhibits an enzyme that pumps cocaine out of cells. And fentanyl also causes dopamine to accumulate at the synapse, which is the main mechanism of action of cocaine. What does that mean? That means if you use them together, you don't have the same half-life. You have cocaine hanging around longer and you have fentanyl hanging around longer. And because of that, you increase the toxicity of the two drugs and you lower the threshold dose at which toxicity occurs. In short terms, using them together makes them much more toxic at a lower level.
And how then can you explain that if Ms. Benning was in the hospital on 2/25 at 22:31, which would have been on February 25th of 23 at 10:31 p.m. and stayed in the hospital until her next blood test draw on February 27th, how then did that nanograms per milliliters of cocaine only go down by 9 points?
So one, it probably didn't just go down by 9 points. There probably was more cocaine initially. However, as I said, the cocaine pharmacokinetics don't work. She obviously didn't ingest or was exposed to an elephant's worth of cocaine or probably 16 8-balls. Cocaine has a very anesthetic effect, and they even use it in anesthesia for eye surgery and for nose surgery. So that much cocaine would have numbed her mouth completely, or her nose, or her face. It's just not probable. So what is probable is that.
You know what? And this is helping the prosecution because I'm thinking, and I'll be arguing, this is the kind of stuff that shows she was radically quickly being killed off, and he's just sitting there. I don't know where I'm at. What's the number you got to dial? 911? Really? Come on.
The pharmacokinetics of using fentanyl and cocaine together retarded the clearance. How much? We don't know. So where normally with a single drug, you might be able to do some pharmacokinetics to try to arrive at what the dose might have been in the beginning. You can't do that here.
So to have a number, for example, to utilize the number Dr. Carney opined on of 7,878, can someone, and you
Yeah, that's what the I think they should have someone understand that maybe on the jury, because as the prosecution brought that out, that you can't even really do this much. Somebody that's recreationally using it would never be able to do that much, and they would know what they're doing, right? So,
your opinion, slip that amount of cocaine in someone's drink without them noticing?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection.
I'll ask you a hypothetical.
I
have to ask a question. Let me give you a hypothetical. If someone was to slip an enormous amount of cocaine into someone else's drink, what, if any, symptoms would you expect that person to feel when levels are 7,000 and 7,878?
So I think people are getting the levels kind of mixed up.
She just asked you a question.
Okay, that level is actually within a normal medium to high use parameter for people that use the drug.
But would
That's
they,
not answering the question.
would they experience any symptoms?
Yes, so they would experience the normal symptoms from using cocaine.
And what type of symptoms would they experience with 7,878 nanograms per milliliters of cocaine?
Oh, if the level was that high, what a medium to high user would experience: tachycardia, agitation, higher heart rate pulse.
If
So
they,
sometimes some
Never cocaine.
thoughts of persecution, fuzzy halos around the eye,
Thoughts of persecution. Oh,
around bright lights, hyperthermia.
so, and I guess my question is, if they were to drink that amount, would that affect the numbness in their mouth?
That amount, perhaps.
if you got an elephant amount of cocaine, how much that costs on the street? Has she got even that kind of money to spend? Who's got that kind of money to spend? It sounds like the defendant would.
Perhaps not. It might make them a little bit numb. What would make them really numb is trying to do the pharmacokinetics back to an expected dose
So,
from that 69, which is our most reliable sample.
okay, so the
What is he
69,
talking about?
sorry, was the amount in her blood on February 27th. If you were to
Blah, blah,
use
blah.
the pharmacokinetics to go back to February 25th, 23, what amount of cocaine would she have had to consume in order to be at 69 nanograms per milliliters on February 27th?
That's where we talked about the elephant and the multiple 8 balls, and I said that it was improbable. So in reality, we just don't know how much she consumed beyond that first blood measurement, which was in an improper tube. So it didn't give us an idea of when. It could have been earlier in that day. It could have been right before.
But will it be more than the amount that we see on these tests?
Oh, yes. Well, the 69 going backwards, yes. But the 78 is within normal limits of a high dose use, medium to high dose use.
And given those numbers that you stated would be very high doses, would you expect someone who was drinking that amount of high dose to experience numbness in their mouth?
Yes, they should.
All right. So
I want to ask you a question in regards to liquid cocaine.
Okay.
Is liquid cocaine a thing? Is that a thing?
Not really, but people do dissolve cocaine in liquids.
And
well, right there,
along,
that helps the prosecution. People do it. People have done it before. So there you have it. You're helping the prosecution again. Did I say defense? I meant prosecution.
with alcohol, how much cocaine would someone have to dissolve in a liquid to end up at the numbers we see on these tests?
To end up with the numbers that you see on the test,
Yes.
not that much. What a medium to high dose user would use. The problem is that the test is not reliable to tell us when it was used. That's really the problem.
And I'm not speaking of the numbers on the test, I'm talking about going back to 225 in order to end up on 227 at these numbers.
Oh, that's super high dose. I mean, that's improbable. That's how we know the pharmacokinetics are off. You can't use the singular compartmentalized.
In your opinion, do you believe that to use the pharmacokinetics to go back, because we know the half-life is 0.7 to 1 hour, and 0.3 to 1 hour. And so
Yeah.
that means, let's just use an hour for example. For every hour, you would have to go back, cut that number in half.
Mug.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Increase that number, yes.
So increase, going backwards,
Mhm.
increase
Yeah.
that number. And so every hour, you would increase that number by half to go back.
Which is billions of milligrams, which is why you're in the ton range. So-
And that pharmacokinetics is in fact the standard accepted manner in order to determine what that person's dose was at the time that we are trying to determine on 225, on the evening of 225, that is an accepted practice in your field of toxicology?
Yes, if you can get it to a single drug where it's acceptable, yes.
Thank you. I pass the question.
Thankfully, man, that was painful. Yep. I mean, think of the odds. What are the odds that the guy who cannot stand to have Jade pregnant happens to show up, and as soon as other people leave, boom, she's dropping dead? Really? I mean, what are the odds of that happening? She's 25 years old, and she's alone in a room with somebody that really doesn't want her to be pregnant, because that's going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for the next 18 years. And within a short time of other people leaving her apartment, she drops dead. What are the odds of that happening? Is that a coincidence?
Dr. Lindsay, so you claim that you've reviewed several things in this case file, correct?
No, I reviewed several things in the case file.
That's what I just said.
I think you said I claimed to
You
review.
claimed to, I'm saying, you said that you reviewed the toxicology reports.
Oh, so she's going to fight back with the words claimed. No, I didn't claim it. I did it, right?
The detective investigation, you said
Yes.
the EMS,
That's
I guess the
correct.
reports.
Yes.
Have you been watching
You're not winning the jury over acting like that.
all the testimony this week?
I've been watching most of the testimony. I tried to watch most of it. Yes,
Okay. And you reviewed the bond hearing transcript, correct?
that's correct.
And the Pandora
So she's having to crank out all these hours listening to all these other people testifying, having to read over 1,000 pages of material. So, this is adding up to a lot of money.
records and the medical examiner records, correct?
That's correct.
And so you heard Dr. Carney's testimony before this jury, is that right?
That's correct.
And you heard Dr. Krobluski's testimony before this jury, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you also heard Dr. Midthen's testimony before this jury, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so you were talking about the
What's she charging? A couple grand an hour?
methamphetamine and the marijuana that came up in the assay test on the comforter. That's what you started out talking about. Do you remember that?
I remember it was mentioned, but that was one of the side tests that were done, or one of the results that came up, but it wasn't validated.
Correct. It wasn't validated because they can have false positives, correct?
I believe it wasn't valid. Well, yes, because of the iron ratios, they weren't correct.
And that's what Dr. Midthen testified to, is that it could be a false positive. It did not mean anything. She just noted it, correct?
That's correct.
And you would not report out something that is that low level, correct?
So there was a difference between the ion ratios being off and it being a low level. I don't believe she said that they didn't report it because of the low level. I can go back and check the testimony, or you can look at
It
that.
was the iron ratios were off. It was something that she couldn't report, correct?
Right, and they didn't run it again to see, because I think they were concentrating on the cocaine and the fentanyl, so, yeah, they only ran it that one time.
You would agree that Ms. Benning had multiple tests run and none of them tested positive for methamphetamine, correct?
Oh, correct, yes,
Okay, and none of them tested positive for marijuana either, correct?
correct.
Okay, and also when she got to the hospital, she did not have alcohol in her system. That came back negative, correct?
No, you can't say that because the reporting threshold is 10 nanograms per mil. So as I discussed earlier, anything below that 10 nanograms per mil will be reported as a negative.
Okay, but
So we can only say that it was reported as a negative, that it was either negative or less than 10 nanograms per mil.
okay, so if the cocaine was dissolved in a very small amount of alcohol and put in her drink and she adjusted it that way,
Yes,
that would explain the cocalethylamine that is apparently so incredibly important.
it would have to be a larger amount of ethanol, not just a little bit, in order to come up in the assays. So we're not talking like a teaspoon. I think somebody had said something crazy like vanilla before.
Well, you just said somebody said something crazy. That's interesting because you're saying that it came up in the comforter, the cocoethylene, correct?
In the vomitus, yes.
Okay, but Dr. Mithen's report specifically does not even have a numeric value. The response was so low.
Yet it's still persisting in other matrices a couple days later, so it just hadn't formed all the way probably.
So her vomit had some fentanyl in it. Okay, so it was a concoction of cocaine and fentanyl. So I don't know why this is really an issue.
It literally does not have a numeric value. That is how low it is.
Okay, but it's still persisting in other matrices days later, so we know that it was at a
That's the other thing I got to hammer in the closing is that she was face down, can't even breathe, and she's got vomit all out of her mouth and the bed. So she's face down in her own vomit. That's how cruel this guy is. She's face down in her own vomit. Does that sound like somebody that cares about her at all? One iota? Any stranger you'd come across that was in that condition, you'd get them over on their side, at a minimum on their side, if not on their back. Could the jury be this possibly stupid?
higher value then, even given its half-life.
Days later, when she's in the hospital receiving medication after medication after medication, trying to keep her alive on life support because she ingested liquid cocaine.
I don't know that.
Dr. Lindsay, you have heard
Excuse me.
three
You don't need to
experts
raise your voice.
testify.
Okay, have a seat, Ms. Collins, just ask your question in a reasonable manner.
Dr. Lindsay, you have heard three experts testify that it was ingested and it had to be a liquid. It was in her drink.
Are you testifying? Because there's
Please
nothing.
don't interject.
Oh, look at her. Okay, right there. Great. Because you know what? Jury already doesn't like you, and you just stuck a fork in it. Game over.
Yourself, just keep yourself calm as well. You don't ask questions, okay?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. This is what it's all about, right? You're going to make a jab at the prosecutor because she calls you out on your slop.
There is
Now,
nothing.
what is your question? You said three experts said X. What is your question?
You've heard the three experts testify that it was ingested orally, correct?
I've heard them testify that it could have been ingested orally.
Have you heard them testify that there was no evidence that it was ingested in any other manner?
No, I haven't.
You haven't heard that testimony.
She's just off the rails. She's just trying to come up with something to try to make herself relevant, and she's just. I'll try to be nice here.
If not, if you point it out, I would be happy to look at it.
Okay, so you didn't hear Dr. Carney's testimony when she described her autopsy.
That wouldn't show you whether it was ingested orally or by any other manner.
Okay, and Dr. Lindsay, you went on and on about pharmacokinetics and calculating a dose. Did you provide your calculations?
Did I provide my calculations? No, but anybody can do them. If it's a half-life of 30 half-lives in between the first and the second,
Have a
dose, you would
report.
be up to billions of milligrams.
Okay, so you don't have any math that supports that at all for pharmacokinetics.
I did it at one time, but it was so off the chart, I knew that it was incorrect.
Oh, so you knew that you were incorrect.
No, I knew that the pharmacokinetics did not make sense. So anybody can take, the other experts didn't do the same calculations, and they could have, or they should have. They would have seen right away that it was not possible.
Well, you're saying it's not possible because you're refusing to acknowledge that it was ingested in liquid form, correct?
No, I'm not. I'm saying we don't know. It could have been ingested in liquid form, or it could have been used in another form. We just don't know.
Well, that's what you're saying, that you just don't know. But Dr. Carney was very positive when she did her autopsy report. So
Wouldn't have shown, an autopsy report would not show whether someone had ingested it orally.
Okay, so you're an expert in being a medical examiner as well. So she's just all over the map, trying to be an expert in everything.
Or ingested it through insufflation or injection. An autopsy would not show that.
Dr. Lindsay, are you a forensic pathologist?
No, I'm not a forensic pathologist, but I'm a toxicologist, and it would not show that. I don't, if you want
But I
to
can tell everybody else what they're doing wrong in their jobs.
describe how it would show that, maybe that could enlighten me.
Dr. Lindsay, I am asking you the questions.
Okay, and I'm
Have you
going
ever
to.
performed an autopsy?
She's just combative and arrogant and condescending and super aggressive and mean.
No, no.
Okay. Did you hear Dr.
You don't want an expert coming across like a bully, and this is what's going on right here.
Krolewski's testimony, where he said that he would not even attempt to calculate using pharmacokinetics to try to calculate the dose?
He doesn't do that regularly in his practice. He's more of an analytical chemist. It was clear by the way he answered the questions, and that's why he wouldn't do the pharmacokinetic calculations. That's more of a biochemistry type thing.
Dr. Lindsay, that was not
Hence, I know more about his job than he does.
Dr. Krolewski's answer. You do know that, correct?
I listened to his testimony, and that's how I knew he didn't do that. He didn't do it on a regular basis. He's more of an analytical chemist toxicologist than a strict toxicologist who does pharmacokinetic modeling. I think he was open about that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I don't plan to be a judge. You have to be a politician to be a judge, so that's not my wheelhouse. So what is the price of 8 balls? An elephant amount? I'd like to ask her, since she knows so much about everybody's job, what is it like on the street buying cocaine? How much of the cocaine out there is laced with fentanyl?
Okay. Dr. Lindsay, I know that you do. So you're saying that you reviewed everything in the investigation file and the testimony at the bond hearing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But you are here testifying that you think it's possible that Jade Benning was drinking 4 drinks out and doing cocaine. How was she doing it again?
We don't know.
Okay, but what did you use for your pharmacokinetics calculation?
So that's a little bit different. What I'm saying is we don't know whether she ingested it orally or whether through insufflation or whether injection. We just don't know because the numbers don't tell us. And the only reliable numbers we have are from a tube that did not have preservative in it.
Wait a minute, if she got injection, there'd probably be some needle injection site, right? So this is just such a joke.
So while a ratio in a proper tube might give us an idea of whether it was orally ingested instead of insufflated, we didn't have that because we had the tube that didn't have the proper preservative in it.
Okay, so my question is for the pharmacokinetics that you testified about, I think at one point you said 16 that you all, what was the ingestion method that you used for that pharmacokinetics calculation?
So I did assume an oral bioavailability for that. Oh, gosh, should have been using that before.
So you assumed liquid cocaine.
Cocaine taken orally.
Dissolved in a liquid.
It doesn't have to be dissolved in a liquid. It's the same thing if you take it orally or food, liquid, whatever. It's going through the metabolism that way instead of going through insufflation or vaginal insertion or whatever.
So you said that, and then immediately afterwards you said, but you can't calculate the pharmacokinetics with this case.
Correct.
So you calculated it, and then you said you cannot calculate it in this case.
Yeah, so the history is that when I tried to apply proper pharmacokinetics to this case, it didn't work. And so then I went into researching, because it wasn't plausible, then I went into researching, well, why could that be? And then there are a couple articles that I provided the literature here. The best one is Chang et al., who goes into the pharmacokinetics of cocaine and fentanyl taken together and how they both inhibit each other's clearance. What does that mean practically? They both inhibit each other's half-life or clearance. So we don't know how much.
Dr. Lindsay, you're going on and on about cocaine and fentanyl. Those are the facts of this case. Dr. Lindsay, you do agree that on the internet,
Yeah.
there's information about liquid cocaine. Do you agree with that?
Yes, can we clear up the last statement?
Do you want to start arguing with her?
No, she just made a factually
Okay.
incorrect.
Oh, good. See the judge saying, do you want to start arguing with her? She's asking a question, right? The judge doesn't like witnesses asking questions. She still hasn't learned that.
Well, if they want to ask you, they'll ask you. What is your literature about liquid cocaine?
It's on the internet, correct? There's rehab facilities that have internet pages. When you go to it, it says do not ingest it this way because it is lethal and it will kill you. You have seen that, correct?
Yes, if you orally use cocaine, you can overdo the amount because the bioavailability is less and it takes longer to absorb.
And it is known to cause death. It is lethal, correct?
No, lots of people use cocaine that way. I mean, it's not preferable. You kind of waste part of the drug, but apparently the high is supposed to be better. The problem is the fentanyl along with the cocaine, which lowers the threshold dose of toxicity.
Okay, so if a website says that it increases the risk of sudden death, you're just saying not really, even though.
I'm saying it doesn't cause death in all cases.
But it can cause death, and there is information on the internet that warns people about that. Don't you agree?
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll rule the objection. She's going to answer, I think.
Yes, of course it can cause death. It depends on the amount.
And you would agree too that there is a lot of information on the internet about cocaine and that it can cause a placental abruption or a spontaneous abortion if used when pregnant, correct?
Cocaine can cause myocardial infarctions, including things like placental abruptions. Yes, it can.
I mean, this is the U.S. Department of Justice, 1988, cocaine use in pregnancy can lead to spontaneous abortion of the fetus.
Yes, it can also lead to birth of those babies, which everybody knows about, the crack babies, the cocaine babies that are adopted, thankfully.
Thank you, Dr. Lindsay.
Any other questions?
Yes. May I have the call, please? I was asking him if I could utilize the here.
It's up.
Thank you. Dr. Lindsay,
Yes,
I want to draw your attention, first let me do this. Draw your attention to the NMS litigation packet and from the data in regards to, in regards to 23129285. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you see the window for cocaethylene?
I do.
And just to be clear, 23129285, is that the comforter we've been discussing this morning?
Yes.
And do you see a peak in a presence for cocaethylene?
Yes, this was also admitted to by Mithun and Katalski.
If you'll just answer the question,
Sorry.
instead of ad-libbing all of the information. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm tired of it.
And so does that in fact show that there was in fact the presence of cocaethylene on the comforter in the vomitus?
Yes.
Now, to be fair, it was not up to the reportable limit, but it was in fact there.
Yes.
Are there reasons why a substance will not be at a reportable limit?
If it's not formed yet, if it's below the reportable limit.
And would this be before Ms. Benning ever made it to Vanderbilt Hospital?
Yes.
I now want to show you, again, NMS
Again and
Laboratory
again.
Report 231-29285. You see that?
Yes.
That is the same number associated with the comforter. Is that right?
That's right.
And do you see the fentanyl peak in this window here?
Yes.
And is that peak a representative of, in fact, fentanyl being present in the vomitus on the comforter?
Dr. Mithun testified that it was, yes.
So it's not just you stating that the fentanyl was present and or the cocaethylene was present. This is NMS lab data that was performed by Dr. Mithun.
Yes.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Okay.
You know what she's saying, Your Honor? So has Sonny been listening to me harping about that yesterday? She's totally changed her demeanor today. That's what I'm saying. I think they may have folks listening in to see what the commentators are saying. And so I don't know if other commentators are saying that. I haven't heard anything, but why is she totally changing her attitude? It's very interesting.
Do you have any other questions?
That's why I don't want to give help to the defense, overt help.
Finally, Dr. Lindsay, is there any type of treatment at a hospital that will cause you to test positive for cocaethylene?
No,
Thank you.
not that I know of. I would
Thank
say.
you. Okay.
Yeah, because you don't work in a hospital, never have. So
Any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor.
At this time, Your Honor, the defense will call Dr. Kelly Larkin.
Okay.
okay, so that was the case. Internet channels calling her out. Okay, cool. It's just so obvious, right? No, this judge hasn't called her out. He's not going to do it behind chambers. Yeah, if he hasn't done it here. Yeah, yeah. Did he make sure she was face down? Thank you, my sister. Hmm. April did coke in the 80s, shared half a gram with others. Can you imagine what Jade went through beginning of drinking that amount? It had to be the worst feeling mentally and physically. Yeah, and if you're not a normal user of it, I don't know much about cocaine, how it's going to make you feel, how much is too much, and all that kind of stuff. And apparently, he wouldn't either. Well, Dr. Lindsay did a terrible job. She actually helped the prosecution, I think. That's a plus. That's a plus for the prosecution today.
Did the state get what you wanted?
Yes, Your Honor, I mean, when we have a chance to review this, so having now just been handed,
Something different?
yes. Which might result in a jury
You'll
out.
step down the hallway, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, okay. Someone at the trial called the defense has one of the streaming of the trial, and we're watching. Yeah, they're probably watching comments like on this channel, Long Crime or Court TV or something like that. But they're digging themselves a hole here. Their second day of their case in chief.
What do we have different, Ms. Holland?
This is my first time, so I'd like to.
Right here.
This just appears to be notes that she took, the first page or there, she has names here, EMTs, and it's not original thoughts, it's just notes.
Yeah. That'd be funny, maybe if I was a prosecutor, maybe I'd think about doing something like going, so that's not the way you do it in Houston. Is that what you're telling us here in Nashville? Can you imagine how that would come across with a jury? Oh, okay. So in Houston, creates a sort of like battle of the experts, Nashville versus Houston. You got to think creative stuff like that, and get juries to feel some kind of distrust, and have these experts alienate themselves from fitting in there, being trustworthy. And I think they're aware of that Houston problem, because that's why she didn't even say where she's from, right? So, and it's never brought up by the prosecution. Every one of these guys is from Houston. So, I mean, I just keep making this. Okay, so you're Houston folks telling us here how to operate, right? So so Dr. Lindsay needed a hook after looking like a fool. So
Would you like to see the notes, John?
I don't know. How long does the state need?
yeah,
Just
they haven't brought up Houston at all. Gosh, I hope they do it in their closing. All right, they don't mention that all these guys are from Houston. Come on, prosecution, you're asleep at the switch.
maybe 3 or 4 more minutes, and maybe in that time, we can get Dr. Carney
Okay.
connected up.
What?
All right, so
All right, let the jury step in.
yeah, smoke and arrow leather. You're saying this Texas does have some of the best medical facilities in the nation. Might be a reason they don't ask. Yeah, you know what? I know some majorly botched surgeries here in Texas at some of the finest institutions, top-rated institutions. In fact, one of them is involving my sister. So, and I've been to Vanderbilt Hospital before, so I don't think they're any better here overall as a generalized comment. Well, the Titans came from Houston, so
Step up, raise your right hand.
change the name.
Do you swear the testimony not to give you the truth, so help you God? I swear.
Yeah, here we go. Guess where she's from, folks?
I got a little piercing.
Anybody want to take a guess where she's from?
Good morning, Dr. Larkin. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Dr. Kelly Larkin.
I'm from San Antonio. Here, that's where Leslie and I live. We're about 75 miles from Austin, southwest of there, and we're sort of straight west of Houston, a couple hundred miles, about a 3-hour drive.
KELLYLARKIN.
And could you please give the jury a little background as to your education as well as your employment experience?
Yes, I'm a board certified emergency physician. I've been practicing for 30 years. I have a bachelor's degree in science. I have
But the money was so good, I wanted to jump on this case.
a master's degree in neuroscience. I have a medical doctorate. And following completing medical school, I did an emergency medicine residency training for 3 years. Following that, I was invited to take the board examination to become board.
I'd rather testify in murder trials about what happened to dead people and what the medical folks did wrong. So, yeah, any chance I can to get out of Houston, sign me up.
Board certified. I took the written boards. Once I passed that, the next year I was invited to take the oral boards. Once I passed that, I was a board certified emergency doctor. Since that time, every 10 years I have to recertify. So I've recertified twice now. And so I'm still currently a board certified emergency physician. And for the past 30 years, I've worked exclusively in emergency departments, mainly in Houston, Texas area.
Oh, there you go.
And have you had any publications as it pertains to articles and or any type of treatise?
I've had some publications from like graduate school and some small publications.
And have you had an occasion to also teach?
Yes, I've been a associate professor at University of Texas, so I've taught medical students, residents, paramedics, different emergency providers over the years.
Have you had
Okay, and she's still got time to take on a case like this? They're paying really big bucks is all I'm thinking here.
the occasion to testify before and been certified as an expert in emergency medicine?
Yes, I have.
At this time, I would tender Dr. Larkin in the area of emergency medicine.
As I said in the beginning of this live stream tonight, you know, what kind of emergency room doctor would leave to come on a case, spend all those hours? I mean, you're working ER. I can't think anything more stressful. And then you need the extra money to be able to study thousands of pages and to fly from Houston to Nashville and sit there in a hotel and wait around to testify. And I mean, that's like really draining. And you know, you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. You got to be doing it for the money, right? So how much money is it? That's an ultimate $1 million question here, and prosecution doesn't ask it. It's just mind-boggling.
Any questions? from
No
the-
question.
Okay. All right, again, ladies and gentlemen, this doctor will be allowed to give an expert opinion in emergency medicine or field, and you can place such weight as you choose to apply.
And at this time, I would tender to the court Dr. Larkin's curriculum vitae.
Okay, be 63.
Dr. Larkin, in preparation for your testimony today, did you review any of the materials that were involved in this case?
Yes, I did. I reviewed the medical records, the EMS records, the 911 call, some of the toxicology reports, some of the transcripts from some of the testimony this week.
Describe that and this medical incident with Ms. Penny.
Yes,
Did you have the opportunity in preparation for your testimony today to not only listen to the 911 tape, but to look at the emergency records in this case? You can go back, Judge.
yes, I did.
And what I mean by that is from EMS and the fire department. If you could blow up the pre-hospital care report, the same.
You know, it just occurred to me, the prosecution should have asked her, is that something that is appropriate to leave somebody face down in their vomit when they're dying from a cocaine overdose? Isn't that the worst thing that could happen to Jade as to what the defendant did? Left her face down in her vomit. Her elephant's amount of cocaine.
Notice in this
Mixed
report
with vomit
narrative
coming out of her
where it
mouth?
states that the patient's boyfriend stated the patient was 4 months pregnant.
Yes, I saw that.
Now,
Okay, so he didn't know how many months along she was. Now let's see. Here we can look at this here. Medic 35 was dispatched to the location for an overdose. Overdose. Okay, so not allergic reaction. While en route, dispatch stated the call turned to an allergic reaction, but the patient was breathing normally with symptoms not getting worse. Really? Is that really what happened? So you're going to get better after you ingest cocaine, an elephant's amount of cocaine. Really? You're going to get better. This is what I'd highlight in my closing as a prosecutor. Upon arrival, the patient was prone on the bed. The patient had vomited. It's more than prone, it's face down. That's even worse than prone. Prone is like you're sort of on your side. Upon arrival, prone on the bed, the patient had vomited. The patient was immediately turned over and put on a man sack and taken to the ambulance. The patient's boyfriend was acting hysterical, would not listen to EMS. Yeah, he was not listening. He was getting in their way, right? So why would you get in your way? The way of the EMS folks. The patient's boyfriend stayed 4 months pregnant. Okay, that doesn't even know how far along she is. No other medical information was obtainable. He doesn't know anything about her medical condition, really. The fact that she couldn't move her legs, the fact that she rapidly was losing consciousness and was completely out of it. She's basically not even having a pulse at this time. Once in the ambulance, patient did not have a pulse. There we have that. Compressions were immediately initiated. An IV was established. An LMA was established with CO2 attachment. Narcan was given to epi every 3 to 5 minutes while en route to ER. Yeah, is an EpiPen what you need when you got cocaine in your system? That could have caused a bad reaction. 2 firefighters were on board doing compressions and breathing for the patient. The patient showed PEA on the monitor. Vanderbilt was immediately notified of the emergency traffic that we were coming in with. A CPR in progress on a pregnant patient. Upon arrival at the ER, the patient was taken to a room. Patient assisted from the stretcher to the ER. Report was given to the RN and MD and trauma staff. The RN signed, and the care of the patient was transferred over.
I want to
So this is helpful. This is helpful for the prosecution if they use this.
also ask you, did you also review the Emergency Communications Center information?
Yes, I did.
And did you also review another CAD incident report from the emergency center?
Yes, I did.
Did you, in your preparation today for your testimony, see where there was any other or any place where Mr. Taylor described this incident as an overdose?
I did not.
Did you see that someone did describe it as an overdose?
Yes.
And who was that?
So initially, it says that Medic 35 was dispatched to the location for an overdose. So the way that works is typically the 911 operator would have sent information to dispatch the ambulance, and they would have told them that was what their initial dispatch was for, an overdose.
Did you have an opportunity to listen to the 911 call that Mr. Taylor made in regards to this incident?
Yes, I did.
Did he ever describe this as an overdose?
He did not.
Did you have an opportunity over your course of the 30 years in the emergency room? It's fair to say you see me.
He didn't report as an overdose because she accused him of putting something in her drink, right? So that's why he made the point of not doing that. So this is, again, re-emphasizing something the prosecution should be pointing out big time in their closing.
Emergencies.
Yes, we do.
Where do you currently work?
I work at University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center Emergency Department in the Houston Medical Center.
And prior to that, where did you work?
I was at Baylor St.
He's working at 2 ERs and it's got time to deal with this, really?
Medical Center for 20 some years prior to that.
And in all those years, were you practicing emergency medicine?
Yes.
So have you had the opportunity to come in contact with many families who had loved ones who were experiencing significant medical emergencies?
Yes, every day that I worked.
And sometimes those medical emergencies ending in death.
That's correct.
And can you tell this jury whether or not
How about murder? Any of them there with their loved one that they were the ones that caused the trauma that resulted in a death of one of your patients?
there's any one way that you've seen a person respond to a familial medical emergency with a loved one?
Absolutely not. Everyone behaves differently in these emergency situations. I think it's common. Everybody behaves differently in just any emergency situation. So now if you're in an emergency department and a loved one is sick or something is going on, Some people are calm and you can tell they're upset. Some people are a little more excited.
And some people can totally fake it, right? If they have criminal culpability they're worried about.
Everybody responds differently. I could never describe that one way to do it. There's no right way to deal with that. I can't imagine being in a situation on the other side of it.
Unless you're glad that something bad is happening, unless you're the one that caused it, right? You're actually going to be deep down happy, but then trying to fake it as if you're concerned.
So I now want to draw your attention to when a patient arrives at the emergency center. Okay. Are there situations when a patient would have to be intubated when they get to the emergency center?
Yes, that can happen.
Have you had the opportunity to see whether or not Ms. Benning was ever intubated?
Yes, I did.
And did you find whether or not, did you determine when she was first intubated?
So intubation is actually a process where a tube is put down into the trachea to breathe for them. But in Miss Benning's case, the EMS put a temporary airway in right away in the ambulance, which is a very common thing to do. And so a tube is put down and it works well to breathe for a patient for a temporary measure. What happens then, we get a
I'm just still thinking, folks, that they need to bring up this. Why haven't they brought up the fact? Oh, so in Houston, you do it this way, right? Just bring up those kind of points of difference between what they're saying in Houston. All these folks are from Houston. It's just extremely bizarre. I hope the jury's picking up on it because this is not something being driven home by the prosecution.
in the emergency department, and now we need a little bit more permanent measure. That's for sure a secured airway, and that's what's called intubation. That's when you see it on TV. They go in with the soap, they look in, and they put the tube down, and that tube stays in there, and that's breathing for them. So that actual intubation followed the temporary airway, but that intubation happened at Vanderbilt in the emergency department.
And was there any medication that was given to Ms. Benning to assist with intubating her?
Well, yes. So one of the medications she received succinylcholine in the emergency department.
Is that a common medication that is given to a patient when he or she
All this is repeat, right? Rehashing
is being
old
intubated?
stuff.
Yes.
What is the purpose?
Trying to educate us for the first time, counsel. I mean, what's the point?
It's a paralytic. So typically you want to give a sedative and a paralytic for a patient to intubate them. That's basically the definition of how you intubate someone.
Did you have an opportunity to review all the medical records? Well, let me ask you, do you see anywhere here on these medical records in front of you? We'll start with page 55, where you see the paralyzing agent succinylcholine given to Ms. Benning.
Yes, I see that in the ED notes.
And I should ask, is this in fact,
I object. This statement that records testimony that was not given because Ms. Benning was dead. All right.
and that's the
Okay,
reason,
101.
that's the reason we're going into the records.
Okay, you can cross-examine as you see fit. So this is her opinion.
Do you see on page 55 right in front of you? Are these the medical records of Ms. Jade Benning?
Yes, these are the EPIC medical records from Vanderbilt.
And can you circle, if you can, the top right corner with your finger where it states these are Jade Benning's medical records? Can you circle, if you see where it says ED notes, and if you were to go down,
Oops, sorry.
if you were to go down maybe 9 or 10 lines, do you see where it says paralyzing agent succinylcholine?
Yes, I did.
Could you circle that for the jury, please? And could you read that for the jury, please, that notation that's made?
Yes, so in the ED notes, it says paralyzing agent, succinylcholine, injection, 76 milligrams. And then it was given on 2/26/23 at 00:52.
Would that be the late night, early morning of February 26th?
Yes, early morning.
And as an emergency room doctor, does this say to you that Ms. Benning was in fact given succinylcholine?
Yes, she was.
And based on your review of the records, was she given that in an effort to help intubate her?
Yes, it's in the other notes
Right.
as part of the procedure to do the actual intubation.
And it is your representation that this was in fact in the emergency room?
Yes, it
In the
was.
emergency department?
I'm sorry, yes, it was.
I want to now draw your attention to page 90. And if you could clear your screen, please.
Draw your attention to, yeah, I saw somebody saying, I don't like it when attorneys say that.
At the bottom.
How do you do that?
Some attorneys always feel the need to have a transition type comment like that.
Oh, clear. Okay.
On page 90, are these two Ms. Jade Benning's medical records?
Yes, these are her records.
Could you circle her name?
You
at the
don't
top?
have to get her to circle. It's right there in the report.
Do you see where Ms. Benning was, or at least succinylcholine in these records as well? Also, those are Move to the next page, please. To page 90.
Come on, please, please, get through this. This is painful. The jury's been suffering for hours on end.
So
End this.
we can move forward. So let's now go to, was there a time when Ms. Benning, based on your review of the records, was getting fentanyl?
Yes, she received fentanyl.
And do you see when and where she was getting fentanyl?
Yes.
If I could, click it on, please.
All right, so she wasn't given fentanyl, but yet she was. I mean,
Do you see the highlighted area there on page 562?
what
Yes, I
difference
do.
does it make?
Could you describe to the jury what it means here when it says fentanyl?
They're just on all these rabbit
So
trails.
that's when they actually just pulled out the fentanyl to administer.
And based on your review of the records, was she ever given fentanyl at this date and time?
She was not.
I now want to draw your attention to page 567 of Ms. Benning's medical
It
records.
was or wasn't. It doesn't
Do
really
you see the
matter, does
highlighted
it?
areas there?
Yes, I do.
And is this in reference to the medication fentanyl?
Yes, it is.
And was she given fentanyl at this time?
Yes, she was.
And what time do you see notated in the medical record of Ms. Benning as to when she was first given fentanyl?
So her initial infusion of fentanyl.
I mean, street drugs are going to have a lot of stuff in there. It's nothing pure. There's not pure cocaine. It's going to have other stuff in there. So fentanyl is now one of the common mixers of choice, isn't it? So I just don't. They're just
Was
Just doing the rope
22623 at 0039.
So with
But,
that-
sorry, 0041. So the pull and the, I think that's enough time.
jury confusion does work. It can work. So I'm not saying this is a complete waste of time in that sense, because if you just bore the jury to death and get them to forget about what they heard in the prosecution case in chief, this can work at times.
Yes, 0041, 0045, I have where the infusion started. So there may be another page of this as well.
This is page 727.
That's correct.
Okay. You can go ahead and explain to the jury what this is saying.
So this tells you that the infusion starting, the time that's highlighted on the right is 0045 for the actual infusion starting.
Okay. And when does it end here in this medical record?
So,
You can-
oh yes, I can see, I'm sorry, I should have less on, but the end date on this infusion and at this rate was 2/27/2023 at 18:43 or 6:43 p.m.
And in your review of all of Ms. Benning's medical records, is that where you see she was initially given fentanyl at Vanderbilt Hospital?
That is when she initiated that fentanyl, yes.
I now want to go back to page 90 of the medical records.
You know, the other thing I'm thinking of is, like, if you're an ER doctor, do you realize how many times you have to testify when there's vehicle accidents with serious injury and death? And then you're going to want to do this on your side and make money on the side, doing on a case where you're not forced to have to be subpoenaed and testify as to what happened. You trying to save someone's life or things like that. It's just so bizarre.
Do you see there in reference to the medication succinylcholine?
Yes, I do.
And what is this record representing?
So this is on the ED timeline. So this is basically step-by-step everything that goes on in the emergency department. And this shows you that at 0015, that there was an order placed for succinylcholine.
And is this too in the emergency department?
Yes, it was.
I now want to draw your attention to page 562 of the medical record. What does this represent, Dr. Larkin?
So this is the succinylcholine, again, the pull. So that's taking out the succinylcholine out of the machine to be able to administer the succinylcholine. So that shows it was taken out.
And based on your review of the medical record, I will go to page 567. What does that represent?
So this is showing you that the succinylcholine injection of 76 milligrams was completed, and it tells you who had ordered it initially, and then it tells you the nurse that acknowledged that as well.
And does it say completed?
Yes, it does.
What does that mean?
That means that the order that had been made to give the succinylcholine actually was completed, so it was given to the patient, and that goes along with the other one we saw earlier that said when it was given.
And is that again in the emergency room?
Yes, it was.
Now, I want to now draw your attention back to Is it working?
Well, okay, defense theory, she's overdosed on fentanyl. Okay, they're just trying to cause confusion, but in the end, it doesn't matter, right? Corey Richens, she thought she was maybe buying something to kill her off her husband, but in the end, it turned out to be some different mixture. They don't know what the exact mixture is when you buy drugs off the street, so you're not going to have exact knowledge. So this is just all window dressing.
And you can go back, Josh, to the records of the litigation, of the toxicology. Did you have an opportunity to review the toxicology report from NMS 2312985?
Yes, I did.
And did you learn from the review of these records that this was in fact vomit on a cover that Ms. Benning vomited during the evening as a result of her medical incident?
Yes, I understand that.
And did you consider that too to be a symptom in regards to her medical condition?
Yes, it's not uncommon as someone is having respiratory difficulty or other problem that they have some vomiting.
Did you notice, based on your review of any of these toxicology reports, have you had the opportunity over the 30 years of your practice to have to deal with toxicology?
Yes, so as an emergency physician, you get trained in toxicology. We obviously have patients that come in and we have to look at reports regarding toxicology.
And you're not claiming to be an expert in toxicology, are you?
I am not.
Did you notice in the records, lab reports of Ms. Benning from NMS, whether or not you noticed that coca-ethylene was present in her system?
Yes, coca-ethylene was present in that NMS sample that we're looking at.
Thank you.
At least you can pronounce it correctly as opposed to Dr. Lindsay.
Have you ever had an occasion over the course of your career to treat a fentanyl overdose?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever had an occasion over the course of your career to treat a cocaine overdose?
Yes, I have.
And could you describe for the jury what you would expect to see after 30 years of working in the emergency room department? Have you had an occasion to deal with cocaine overdoses?
Yes, so they're almost opposites of each other. So cocaine is more of a stimulant, and then fentanyl is more a depressant. So cocaine overdose, typically when we see them in the emergency department, they've got fast heart rate, they're anxious, they're hot, they might be breathing normal or fast. They can be paranoid, they can be excited, but they're kind of the symptoms that go along with the cocaine. They come in maybe with chest pain because their heart's beating so fast or their blood pressure is so high. So it's all of those things like that are amped up on the system. So the difference with fentanyl is classically is there's more drowsiness. And I think I described that we see it sometimes in the hospital when we give a little bit too much fentanyl to try to treat someone's pain. We have to watch out for them getting too sleepy. But with fentanyl, again, the respirations tend to slow down. It's a little more gradual of a change versus like the cocaine. Like I said, they're hyped up and they've got things going on that are fast. Typically, in the fentanyl overdose, we see that they slow down their breathing. They end up having a respiratory arrest. And after that, again, if the oxygen doesn't get there to the heart and to the brain, then they can have a cardiac arrest. And that's typical progression.
And can you describe to the jury what a fentanyl overdose looks like?
Yes, so as I mentioned, the fentanyl is when they have typically the respiratory arrest. They might be awake and talking, but then all of a sudden they get a slurred speech or they get quieter or they start not feeling well and sleepy. And then their breathing starts slowing down. They could have snoring, as we talked about earlier, and then eventually the lack of oxygen can cause worsening things like cardiac arrest or just a demise at that point from lack of oxygen to the brain and to the heart and the other organs.
And did you take a look at all the symptoms that were described of Ms. Benning in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to opine as to, based on the symptoms that were described, what was more consistent with the episode that Ms. Benning was having?
In this case, it's definitely more consistent with fentanyl. And unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of that over the past several years. It's just increased. And it's adulterated drugs. It's not necessary. People know that it's in something that they might be taking. And that's where we see these tragedies and these accidental ingestions of the fentanyl. So to that end, this is more of a fentanyl presentation where, like I said, in this case, she started talking to her friend Nigeria. By the end, she really couldn't understand her. So maybe she was getting more not able to speak as well. And then, as Mr. Taylor describes, she's laying on the bed. She's not really responding much. She's snoring. She's got some foaming coming out of the mouth. all those things go along with fentanyl. Not to say there couldn't have been something else, but we know what we see a lot of is mixed things now. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is a lot of cocaine that now has fentanyl in it. And that's been kind of the fourth wave of things that we're seeing. So we have to watch out for that. So to answer it, the fentanyl is more likely to be definitely part of this overdose.
As a medical professional in an emergency room, did you notice that Ms. Benning had fentanyl in her system prior to receiving it at Vanderbilt Hospital?
Yes, I did.
And are you able to opine that fentanyl had nothing to do, given all the medical records that you reviewed for Ms. Benning, to do with her medical episode?
Can you restate, please?
Can you opine that fentanyl had nothing to do with the medical episode suffered by Ms. Benning, based on the records that you've read?
No, so fentanyl, we know fentanyl was present, and it was present prior to her getting fentanyl in the hospital.
Yeah, check, also cross-examine, but that is not what is in the record.
Okay, she's just indicated it is from her perspective, so go ahead.
Now, finally, have you had the opportunity to review the autopsy report from Ms. Benning?
Yes, I have.
And in reviewing the autopsy report, was there anything specific in regards to Ms. Benning's heart that stood out to you?
Yes, and I believe the medical examiner mentioned it as well. There was a enlargement of the left ventricle of the heart, and also the myocytes of the heart. It just means the cells that are in the heart, and they were enlarged in that left ventricular area. And that can be caused by several things like longstanding high blood pressure and other things. But again, that can be consistent with just something chronic, meaning you can't make big cells in that part of your heart quickly. It didn't happen with this event. It's not acute. It had to happen over time. So one of the chronic things that can cause this over time is just cocaine use over time can cause those myocytes to be large and that ventricle to be enlarged.
Now, to be fair, are there other things that could cause this type of myocyte hypertrophy?
Yes, and other things that make the heart work harder, like I said, high blood pressure, other heart problems.
In reviewing the records of
Let's see.
Benning's heart that stood out to you?
Yes, and I believe the medical examiner mentioned it as well. There was a enlargement of the left ventricle of the heart, and also the myocytes of the heart. It just means the cells that are in the heart, and they were enlarged in that left ventricular area. And that can be caused by several things like longstanding high blood pressure and other things. But again, that can be consistent with just something chronic, meaning you can't make big cells in that part of your heart quickly. It didn't happen with this event. It's not acute. It had to happen over time. So one of the chronic things that can cause this over time is just cocaine use over time can cause those myocytes to be large and that ventricle to be enlarged.
Now, to be fair, are there other things that could cause this type of
Yeah, she was a regular cocaine user. Right. Okay. Got it.
myocyte hypertrophy?
Yes, and other things that make the heart work harder, like I said, high blood pressure, other heart problems.
In reviewing the records of Ms. Benning, did you have the opportunity to review her OBGYN records as well?
I didn't focus very much on those now.
Thank you. And what do you notice here in regards to what is notated in Ms. Benning? To be fair, is this the autopsy of Ms. Benning?
Yes, it is.
What did you notice here?
This is what I just referred to. Basically, sections of the
I'm
ventricle.
gonna jump ahead. Let me look for the cross.
Notes. I didn't do them until just. Correct.
And said to Mr. Taylor, what did you put in my drink? My drink tastes funny,
It's good that he brought this up.
correct?
Yes.
And from that, we have some time go by before the 911 call. But do you recall there being any mention of those symptoms on the 911 call? My legs, I can't feel my legs.
No, I don't believe so.
With respect to Dr. Olashoga, do you have any criticism of how you handled Ms. Benning
No.
in the emergency department?
No,
He did everything you would have done, correct?
I believe so.
Including having tests run, such as they could be run from the emergency department, talking about to see what is in her system, correct?
Yes,
You did that,
yes, I do.
and you get those results back as quickly as possible, correct?
We do.
It's not like weeks or months later that you're sitting or standing around the emergency department waiting for lab results to come back from the lab.
All right, I think, let me make one comment on juries here. I think we have to trust juries because it's the system we have. Okay, yeah, but it's also involving human people. It's also involving lawyers. Some are better than others. And if you don't know how to do good jury selection or elimination as a prosecutor, then you can lose a case, all right? If you don't do proper cross-examination of the defense witnesses, you don't bring out the amount of details you need to as a prosecutor, and you don't know how to drive home a closing very well, you can lose a really solid case otherwise. So to say that you blame it all on juries, I can, in each case that you say you have the jury mess something up, I can tell you a real critical flaw that the prosecution did. You name the case and if I know about it, I can tell you a critical flaw that the prosecution did that was very, very high risk and very much highly likely to result in a bizarre outcome. So I don't blame juries so much as I blame the folks that are on the prosecution that fail to do their jobs. They just don't have experience. A lot of prosecutors don't like jury selection, and they just try to say, well, it's a random pool of people from the community. So, unless there's something that really stands out, I'm good with it. Other times they may try to knock people off they shouldn't, and they're risking getting it overturned on appeal. So there's a lot of those dynamics that are going on. So I tend to blame it less on the jury and more so on folks that are not doing proper jury selection.
In Pennsylvania, correct?
That's correct.
And Dr. Olashoga needed to have those tests run and got Dr. Broccolari as far as this was something that needed to be investigated, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And there's no fentanyl put into Miss Benning's body by Vanderbilt Hospital until 2/26/23 at 0:45 a.m. Is that not correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Now you talk about people that come in that you've seen in the Houston emergency room or the day before that was in Waco, was it Baylor?
No, that's Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center in Houston.
Okay, in Houston. Those people are alive when they present, correct?
For some of them, yes.
Well, have you had someone present who is determined to be dead because of acute cocaine toxicity in your emergency room?
Oh, I'm sure I have, yeah.
And that is Dr. Aaron Carney's cause of death, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm not going to go back when you redirect. Let's complete waste of time, I think. All right. And then here we see
And if you don't testify, the judge can tell.
this is they want to make sure they get on the waiver. Sometimes the court judge asks the defendant questions about where they want to waive their rights to testify or not, and other times, like here, they let the defense attorney interview, question the accused, the defendant. Got the sound off. He's not acting as nervous as he was the other day. He's probably a little bit comfortable knowing that it's coming to an end here soon, and he's probably pretty confident, a little bit confident, a little bit cocky about it because he's thinking, yeah, this is my attorney's been sort of running roughshod over this courtroom. I'm looking pretty good.
Like first approach.
No, Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
Okay. Will there be any rebuttal proof from the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who?
Dr. Carney?
Where's she?
She is.
Oh, I got her stuff.
Sorry, I missed it. We're just going to keep
The
moving
link
here.
did not work. I need a few minutes just so I can tell her a few things about the last 2 witnesses.
Ladies and gentlemen, or step right hand in these forms.
Oh, here it is.
You swear to tell the truth, so help you God.
I do. All right. Go ahead.
Good week, Ms. Mr. Taylor, you understand that you have the right, absolute right not to testify in this matter?
Yes, I do.
You also understand that you have the right to testify if you so choose?
Yes, I do.
And if you don't testify, the judge can tell the jury that no inference can be drawn from your decision not to testify.
That's correct.
You've consulted with counsel in this case about that decision,
I have.
and your counsel advisor and the advantages and disadvantages of either choice that you might possibly make.
Yes.
After considering all those rights and the possible decisions and the ways you might make that decision, you decided not to testify in this case.
Yes.
And that's your own decision.
Yes.
And no expression forced or coerced you into making that decision.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, you can have a seat. All right, we'll break from lunch. After we hear from the remaining witnesses, you'll give some thought to how long you want from the attorney.
Okay, let's just jump ahead. So defense is rested. He's not going to testify, which I predicted that. There's no reason to put him on the stand. He's going to get tripped up on something. He's going to go down. Most defendants who testify are going to get convicted if you look at any kind of statistics. All right, let's see. Where are we at here?
Sure, we'll have to do that.
Taking too much of us.
Here we go. All right, so we're recalling
For your total argument.
this doctor here. Oh, yeah.
You have Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Larkin, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. There was some testimony that was specific to fentanyl, and whether Ms. Benny might have died from a cocaine and fentanyl overdose, which your autopsy result is that she, the cause of death was acute cocaine toxicity. Can you describe what, if anything, what, if any, evidence did you have of fentanyl in this Benny system prior to her admission at the ED?
I don't have any evidence that she had fentanyl in her system prior to arriving at the emergency department.
And was there specific testing of the urine sample from 2259 that was tested specifically for fentanyl?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was negative, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that first blood that was taken at 2231,
I think it's just common sense, isn't it? I mean, I'm not an expert on toxicology here by any means, but if you don't even have a testable level, but yet that's the thing that kills you before you even get to the hospital, you're basically dead on arrival, and they basically resuscitated her, got her pulse going again.
there was no fentanyl detected, but fentanyl, the specific drug of fentanyl was not part of that test. Can you describe what was tested and kind of what results were not present that give an indication that there was also no fentanyl in her blood?
Well, this commonly happens when we have someone who we believe has taken too much of a substance. They go to the hospital, they are unresponsive, and some testing is done on the urine to try to help direct the blood testing. In this case, we have an initial urine sample that's positive for cocaine and metabolites, no other drugs, no fentanyl. So when I have this limited amount of blood to work with, less than 2 milliliters, I really want to direct the testing so I can catch anything that's there, maybe that wasn't tested for already. In discussion with the toxicologist at Vanderbilt, who had followed her for days and been trying to figure out what drugs might be in her system,
we decided on testing for cocaine and metabolites, since it was positive for cocaine initially and metabolites, and I wanted to catch that ebony methyl ester with it, knowing that the cocaine could break down. I tested for designer opioids. So these are the fentanyls that have the added chemical groups. So you can see it here on the list, there's furanol fentanyl and acryl fentanyl and all of these designer fentanyls, and all of those were negative, as well as one of the things that's been mentioned previously in this case, the 4-ANPP, which can be a precursor to fentanyl, could also be a metabolite. That was also negative, and the testing reporting limit was very low to try to catch anything that was there. It was negative. And then I think that was the bulk of my testing on that, and then we did the additional testing on the fetal liver tissue.
And the testing on the fetal liver tissue, you've testified about that before, but was there any fentanyl associated with that?
No.
And that's even after treatment and all this, correct?
Correct.
And the levels of the subsequent test, which you referenced working with a toxicologist at Vanderbilt, is that Dr. Perry?
Yes, ma'am.
And so the subsequent testing of blood and urine, those results, were those results consistent with her receiving his medication in the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, the cause of death is acute cocaine toxicity, correct?
That's correct.
And there is no evidence that there was fentanyl in her system upon admission at the emergency department.
Isn't that amazing? Like I was saying earlier, how you can have, this is supposed to be science, right? All this, we have all this phenomenal testing and medical equipment and all that, and you can have complete different opinions, and this is supposed to be a science. So, you know, science can have really odd outcomes based on who's looking at it, what their background is.
There was testimony by one of the defense experts that it was an assumption to say that Ms. Benning ingested something orally. Can you describe, you determined that it was ingested, so that is oral ingestion. Can you explain how you were able to determine that, and if it makes sense that it was not orally ingested?
When we look at one of the toxicology textbooks or toxicology books,
Look, she's just doing her job. She's testifying to what she knows to be the truth. She's not getting paid extra. She's not getting tens of thousands of dollars, $30,000-$40,000 to testify to this. So there's no motive other than what she just does in her day in, day out kind of line of work here.
that I refer to rather regularly, and it gets updated on a regular basis with all new studies. The studies have shown kind of the average, what are the ranges and the averages for the amounts of cocaine in cocaine intoxications that have been detected and tested, both in obviously controlled studies, you know how much they've taken and how much the amounts will be, but even in ones that have been treated in the hospital, whether they died or not. And the levels that we see in Ms. Benning's blood are pretty much in oral ingestions. So your nasal insufflation or snorting, your IV injections, you don't have this level in those sorts of cases. You really see it in the thousands like this when they've ingested it orally.
Which, that's part of that oral ingestion is because that level is so high, is that correct?
That's correct.
But also we have that vomit from the comforter that also tested positive for cocaine.
That's true.
And when EMTs see the pink vomit on her mouth, but they also find her face down with her face on the comforter and the vomit stain is under her mouth. That is part of the evidence that you considered in determining this is oral ingestion.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we also have a witness who testified that Ms. Benning said to Blaise Taylor, "What did you put in my drink? I knew my drink tasted funny." And you considered that, is that right?
I did.
Dr. Lindsay also made a comment that you determined that the cocaine all spontaneously hydrolyzed in the tube. That was the clear cap tube without the preservative. Does that make sense to you? Can you explain kind of what happened with the clear cap tube and then it hydrolyzed? Is that something that is commonly seen?
Yes, so that's something we kind of talked about before, how typically when we draw blood at the time of autopsy, we want to put it in a gray top tube that has that sodium fluoride to stop those enzymes from breaking down the cocaine, because it can continue to break down even after the person is deceased while it's still sitting there in their body and while it's sitting in the tube if you don't have something to stop those enzymes. We had a clear top tube, which didn't have that. So the blood continues to break down. I've seen this on many occasions with hospital blood samples with maybe a prolonged time after death before autopsy. And so that's why we want to look for that ethylene methyl ester. And I found a study that was published back in the 90s. So this has been kind of a known thing for quite some time when you're looking at postmortem levels of cocaine, that if you want an accurate estimate of the cocaine or accurate number of nanograms per milliliter of cocaine that's in the blood at the time of death, then you want to add the cocaine and the econymethyl ester together, because that was all parent cocaine initially.
And this is not something that just you know, but is that something that the other forensic pathologists at the medical examiner's office, that is just a normal practice of how you would estimate the parent cocaine?
Yes.
And Dr. Bergolari at Vanderbilt, y'all discussed that, and she in fact agreed with you, is that correct?
I don't remember if we talked about the specific numbers after the fact, but we did talk a lot about the testing and what tests would be most appropriate to order and what we were worried about for her cause of death.
And Dr. Bergolari also was aware of the cocaine on the comforter, and y'all spoke at length about if it was oral ingestion and the numbers and if everything lined up. And Dr. Bergolari was in agreement.
I think we did talk about that because we had a meeting with, several of us, and we discussed, aspects of the case.
Which there were several meetings where everybody was meeting to kind of discuss what the levels were and make sure that everybody was in agreement of kind of what happened and what the test showed. During those meetings, it came up where it was the lawyers were asking, could you determine how much cocaine was ingested? And the result of that was all of the toxicologists saying no.
That's correct. So the problem is, I can't remember, I may have mentioned this before, when you buy medication at the store, it's tested. There's, quality standards. You know that when you buy that over-the-counter medication, like ibuprofen or Tylenol, you know how much is in each pill because it's been standardized, it's been tested, it's passed, those sorts of testing. With your illicit drugs that you buy on the street, you don't have that kind of testing. You don't know how pure the drug is that you're buying, how much is in this particular packet of powder or liquid compared to another one. You don't even know for sure what's in it. They may tell you it's one thing and it's something else. So there's really no way to say exactly how much amount or how many times, something was given.
And part of the high number is that oral ingestion and the other evidence that it was put into a drink and it was liquefied and in a liquid. Is that right?
So liquids or something dissolved in a liquid is going to absorb more quickly than something that's encapsulated, where the acid in your stomach has to eat through a capsule or has to break down a solid mass of the drug. If it's liquid, it's really just going to spread out and it's going to absorb more quickly.
And you previously testified about the one other autopsy case that had a similar level of cocaine concentration in their blood, and it was someone that swallowed some type of cocaine, rock something in custody out of jail.
And the thing is she's accusing him, hey, you put something in this drink, this cup, whatever's in the cup, obviously you didn't finish it. So if Blaise is sitting there with the EMT folks there, he could say, this is what she had. This is what made her sick. What's in this cup? Can you guys find out? I don't know what's in their cup, but this is what she's saying made her sick. He didn't do that at all. So we don't know what happened to that cup.
Okay, the jury called. That what's your question about that?
Judge, I was restating her testimony so I could get to the question.
Okay, good.
You testified about that previously, and that has the same level as Jade's level in this case, similar.
Yes, it did.
And based on the facts of that case, it would not have been an inmate that would have ingested 16 8 balls.
I mean, it has to be something small enough that he has on his person and he could swallow it quickly while in intake. And then, of course, it affected him rather quickly as well.
And liquid cocaine can be lethal even at a smaller dose. Is that correct?
Well, again, we don't know how
16 8 balls? Wow.
much is in it, so, it could be very concentrated.
And so we would not be able to guess that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And also, specifically, cocaine, you've testified to this, has a connection to placental abruption.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is very commonly known, that it is the one substance that has a direct connection to that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Judge, part of this is reiterating the prior testimony.
okay, so all right, she's answered that. What's your next question?
Can you describe how Jade Benning arrived to Vanderbilt University Medical Center?
How she arrived,
Like, what was her state when she arrived at the ED?
she had no pulse. She was pulseless. She had no blood pressure. She was unresponsive and not breathing on her own. She relied on, medical therapy and other providers to basically do her breathing for her.
And Dr. Olashoga testified that she arrived to the emergency department dead. Would you disagree with that?
No.
They also had testimony from Dr. Larkin. She works in an emergency department. She's not a forensic pathologist. And she was testifying about snoring and agonal breathing. Can you describe when does agonal breathing occur? What are the circumstances?
So agonal breathing is that gasping for air type breathing that occurs when the brain is not getting enough oxygen.
And is there one thing that causes that or one circumstance that causes that?
No. So anything that's going to deprive your brain of oxygen. So that right around the time of death. So it could be drugs, it could be a natural event. It's not specific to any one thing or any one drug.
And that is consistent with Ms. Benning's case of that acute cocaine toxicity?
Yes. So the oxygen is not getting to her brain as needed. And so she's having the agonal breathing.
And the circumstances of the EMTs finding her face down in the bed with the pink vomit under her mouth. Can you describe if that happened after the agonal breathing? Is that consistent?
So at that point, it sounds like she's face down in the comforter and she's vomiting and she's not conscious to be able to roll over and kind of protect her own airway so that she gets her face out of the comforter and out of the vomit so that she can breathe. So I would expect.
Yeah, and he was there. He was there to try to help her breathe. And you know what? He left her on her face. And all that time it took for the ambulance to get there, he left her on her face. That is murder, folks. Okay?
Happen, around the same time or after the agonal breathing.
And would that be the same time that she would be going pulseless?
Yes.
There was also some testimony related to.
Yeah, River Life, you're saying he only meant for her to miscarry and that he would blame her for being a junkie for the reason. Yeah, but you know what? When somebody's face down their own vomit, do you think it maybe then you might think, hey, you know what? This is really happening fast. Maybe she's gonna die. Maybe she looks dead. I need to reverse what I started. No, it's all in self-protection mode. So that's when it went from like, you know what? It's just an abortion I'm causing here. No, you're actually knew right then when she's face down her vomit and she's basically dead. You didn't do anything. That's when your dark heart, your evil heart got switched on to let this thing go down these tracks you started.
Someone who has consistent drug use. Was there if someone is using drugs consistently on a daily basis, do you find signs of kind of physical indications of that at autopsy?
There are things that we can look for. If you have someone who's smoking a drug, they may have more of that kind of black deposition in the lungs from where they're a smoker. We can look for if they're snorting it and it's something like cocaine that's going to constrict the blood vessels and could cause damage to the tissues. We can look for any sort of holes or damage to the nasal septum, the little dividing thing right that divides the two sides of your nose. We can also look for if they're an injection, if they inject their drugs, look for needle marks, needle tracks, where they've injected repeatedly to the point where they scarred that vein, and they often have multiple needle puncture wounds over that as well.
So there are physical signs that can be seen at autopsy that indicate the manner of use.
Yes.
And specifically to Ms. Benning's heart, there was testimony that the focal myocyte, is it
Hypertrophy.
Thank you, that was indicative of long-term cocaine use.
I see scattered.
I think for the end of the night here, could somebody please send to me from either Law and Crime or Court TV and give me the timestamp of the actual 911 that they played in court, and I want to play that here to end the night when we get to the end here.
Myocyte hypertrophy in many cases that aren't related to cocaine, that it's more of a natural.
Jurytrialmentor@gmail.com, please. If anyone could do that, please let me know if you're actually going to try to do that.
Cause of death, so I don't think that's specific to cocaine.
And did you have any evidence whatsoever that Ms. Benning was a cocaine user ever?
No.
And Dr. Carney, your expert opinion on the cause of death is acute cocaine toxicity, not a fentanyl overdose, correct?
Correct.
Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, Lee, that's what I said because I've been in Nashville many times. Look at Blaise was pretending he didn't know the apartment was on Lebanon Pike because the delay tack is so obvious. You cannot know that main road if you live in Nashville. Yeah, so it's like everyone in Nashville knows Lebanon Pike. Okay, open and shut.
Good afternoon, Dr. Carney. How are you today?
All right.
I just wanted to talk with you about a few things. You stated that on direct examination that you had a meeting with Dr. Brucolari and others.
Yes.
And at that meeting, you guys were discussing the toxicology results for Ms. Binney.
Yes.
And who all was at that meeting?
Oh, we were discussing timeline events and toxicology.
Do you have notes there in regards to that meeting?
I'm not sure. I know that there was the police and Dr. Burglary and me, and I think General Norman may have been there as well.
And I'm sorry, did you have notes for that meeting?
Oh, I did, but I don't see them here.
Oh, now all of a sudden you're Mr. Like, I want to see your notes.
In that meeting, were you aware that Dr. Brucolari found that Ms. Binney did in fact have cocaine in her system?
No.
She didn't share that with you?
I don't recall seeing those records. No.
Are you familiar with the CFSRE records?
I am now, but I don't remember discussing this then.
Okay. And now that you have seen the CFSRE records, have you since found that Ms. Binney did in fact have cocaine in her system?
I believe it was in the urine, and yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You testified
yeah, that's what I said earlier. When they showed on the screen part of the records, there are medical records. When they said it, she's breathing better. Would that be possible? You need to ask his doctor. Would that be possible once he starts ingesting this for him to get better? No, it's not possible. She was going downhill, just like talking to Najee. She was getting worse and worse and worse. And for him to sit there and say she's getting better, in other words, like, oh, okay, you don't need to rush. She's doing better. I'm trying to cover my tracks because if she survives this, my gosh, she's going to be able to tell everybody I tried poisoning her and I killed her baby and our baby, whatever. And oh my gosh, it's going to be terrible. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. The prosecution, little things like this can make you lose a case. I just hope for the sake of Jade and her family and Ivy that the prosecution is able to override the things they dropped the ball on.
earlier in regards to toxicology report that was a result of the blood that you sent to NMS. And I think you said that you had a very limited amount of blood to test for. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the reason you had a very limited amount, it wasn't because you didn't request enough, it was because you wanted the most accurate picture of what was going on with Ms. Binney at the time she entered the hospital.
That's correct. We want the earliest blood sample possible.
And the earliest blood sample, to be fair, was retrieved for medical purposes, not for.
Okay, River Life and Law PhD, you're saying that there's a lot of people on the chat and Law and Crime that say the prosecution hasn't proven their case, who think he's innocent. Keep in mind, they hire media firms. On the money they've been spending, trust me, they're doing media influencing folks that are there trying to steer the public narrative. So they're absolutely going to be doing that. If they're smart, they're going to be doing that to try to get everybody to have doubts about the strength of the case. So who knows? You might have a juror out there looking at stuff like this.
Forensic purposes, correct?
That's correct.
And so that's why it didn't have the grade topper on top.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you ordered those tests on that blood for which you relied on for your results in your autopsy, you did not order the fentanyl test, correct?
Correct. I ordered the designer opioids, it's kind of specialty fentanyl test.
Right, but it's not fentanyl, correct?
Correct.
And so if fentanyl was present, we wouldn't have known because you didn't order that test, is that right?
Yes, I didn't order that test because it was not in the urine. So if it's not in the urine along with the cocaine, there was no reason to waste blood testing for something that's not there.
There you go.
But to be fair, nothing was in the urine, isn't that true?
No, that's not true. There was cocaine in the urine.
Which urine are you referring to?
The very first one.
The one for
Yes.
225 and 2259?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, your blood sample was 225 and 2231, which was before the urine.
Yes, the cocaine was in both.
Okay, you said you were relying on the urine.
Right, to help direct my testing because
Right.
it didn't have a lot of blood. So I needed to direct my testing to things that I was concerned about. So the fentanyl had been ruled out in the urine and the cocaine was ruled in, but I wasn't sure that anyone had tested for the designer of fentanyl, so that's why I tested for those.
So but just so that the jury is clear, fentanyl itself would not have shown up,
Not in this particular test.
not in the blood, okay, just to be clear. Now, what test was that the fentanyl showed up in, and 22, that did not show up? Is that 2259?
Yes,
Do you have a toxicology report number for that?
I don't have it here. I believe that was the CSFRE. That was the earliest urine that was tested.
Which test result was that?
That was on the 2259 urine. The CSFRE where they did the testing for the over 1,000 drugs.
Okay, I mean, what's the test number, so that I can look at it?
I don't have that one here. I don't have that number right here.
In regards to
All right, let me
the
check the
vomit,
email as planned.
you will agree with me that the vomit was before the blood and the urine, correct?
Correct.
Were you aware that fentanyl showed up in the vomit?
No, the findings it says for case sample was positive for cocaine and benzoylecgonine.
Did you learn later, if I could have the envelope, please? Just so that we're oriented, the 231, 29,
You, thanks for
285,
sending it. Oh,
Yes,
which is for the comforter, you see that?
yes.
no one else needs to send. I think I have it now. Thank you very much. Yeah, she's awesome. This doctor is phenomenal. First class professional.
With the 231,
Job.
29, 285, that fentanyl is in fact present
Okay, thank you.
in the vomit. Did you know that?
The interpretation,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, she's gonna explain.
what the interpretation here says, the case sample 007, which is the fabric in the area with the visible stains, was also none detected for the presence of fentanyl.
Did you know that the reason that NMS may not indicate a positive is because it will be below the reportable limit,
Yes,
not necessarily because there's no indication of it. Are you aware of that?
yes. I've never been told that there was ever any fentanyl in it.
And to be fair, did you know that these records are part of what we call a litigation packet?
I did not know that.
And when you get your toxicology report results, they don't come with a litigation packet.
Correct.
You have to request and pay for those.
Okay.
He's just like, whatever. You just don't get it, do you? So,
Are you familiar with pharmacokinetics?
Some,
Are you able to perform the pharmacokinetics calculations?
no,
That's for a forensic toxicologist, right?
right.
And were you aware that Dr. Kotulski did not agree with your method of combining EME with cocaine to get a definitive measure of concentration level?
Objection, Your Honor, counsel is misstating what the witness
Okay,
testimony.
the jury's heard that. What do you want to reference about prior testimony without you determining whether it's correct or not?
No, Your Honor, I checked. It was,
See, there you go. It's not up to you to check. These ladies and gentlemen of the jury are gonna check everything.
yeah, you can't trust what she says, folks. She's proven that.
yes,
So
sir.
what is your question?
In regards to your testing to get an accurate picture of exactly what was going on as it relates to substances, a hair follicle test would be a good way to actually get a good picture of what type of drugs and or substances in someone's body. Would you agree?
Well, the problem with that, sometimes if you're worried about levels, is there's not a lot of studies or samples or experiences you can compare to with hair. They draw blood in people all the time when they treat them for intoxications or when they die and they do an autopsy. there's not a lot of hair testing to even compare to. So for hair, it's more limited in what you can actually do with the interpretation.
And I get it for the levels, because there were a lot of tests here that didn't have levels, but it could have at least shown you what was present, wouldn't it?
Thanks
What's
for the
in the hair,
emails.
sure. And
Got
show
several
where any drugs
folks
there
that
are.
responded, so thank you.
Yeah, it would show if there were any drugs there, yes.
As it relates to the, I know I'm gonna mess this up, the focal myocyte
Hypertrophy.
hypertrophy, thank you. Miss Benning was a young woman, correct?
Yes,
And otherwise a very healthy young woman, correct?
correct.
Now, we're certainly not saying that the only reason that she would have an enlarged ventricle is because of cocaine use. Not saying that, but it is certainly a possibility, is it not?
I mean, something that will increase your blood pressure would cause your, heart cells to work harder. So you could say myocyte hypertrophy goes with things like that. So that can be a lot of different things. Cocaine's one of many on the list.
What other things would be on the list?
I mean, any sort of stimulant or, even, who knows, anxiety or genetic problems or whatever.
When you say stimulant, what is a stimulant?
Oh, like fentanyl, methamphetamine, something that drives the blood pressure up.
When you were determining and making the decision as to what to test for, I think you said that you had done some research into Miss Benning, and with the cocaine, that was significant enough for you to stop there, right?
Well, it's not so much that it's stopped there, but we really want to, and this is the case because, like I said, the blood sample is limited. We want to kind of focus in on the things that we want to confirm, because otherwise, if you test for everything, you're going to run out of blood. You're not going to be able to confirm anything. So in this case, we already knew that she was positive for cocaine, and we wanted to get a number. Like I thought I wanted a number that I could recognize. And then that was really the only positive test that she had.
When you were making your decisions, weren't you not making your decisions under the impression that she had no history of drug use?
I mean, whether she had a history of drug use or not, you need to look at what are your positive tests. And then you can think about the history when you're looking at the interpretation of those results.
But weren't you told she had
No current history. They keep trying to switch that around to make it look like it's ongoing.
history of drug use?
I was told that the only drug history she had was making some marijuana edibles in the past, and that had stopped when she found out she was pregnant. So no recent drug history.
Yep. There you go.
Do you remember taking or giving a testimony previously in regards to Miss Benning?
Yes.
And do you remember when you gave that testimony, I believe you stated that she does not have a history of drug use. She did not appear to want to take anything that would harm her child or herself.
Right. So knowing with her pregnancy, she stopped even with the marijuana edibles, and there was no reason to believe she had taken any drugs as of late.
But she did have a history of drug use, didn't she?
Well, we talked about that. So you even showed me the transcript.
She stopped. I mean, see how this attorney's trying to impeach the witness, and she's failing. She's just digging a hole deeper and deeper. But you know what? She's tone deaf to what's really going on. So that's why she keeps doing it. She has a checklist and she's going down it no matter how bad it's blown up in her face.
We talked about how I said she didn't have specifically like the cocaine, that sort of illicit drug use, that the only drug use I was aware of was the marijuana edibles.
Well, I'm looking at the transcript here, it doesn't say that. It just says no history
Texas Twister defense.
of drug use.
Okay, well, we talked about it on my direct, or my, I guess, cross the first time to clarify this.
And if you say that she did not appear to want to take anything that would want to harm herself or her child, how do you explain cocaine in her system?
I don't know how the cocaine was delivered to her, if it was absorbed in some sort of alcohol. I do not know how that was done or where the alcohol came from.
Would Ms. Benning not be able to taste cocaine and alcohol if she was getting it unknowingly?
I don't know how much alcohol it might be, and I don't know anything about cocaine taste, so I can't help you with that.
There is none. And
Yeah, it is fair enough. You need to move on, sit down.
certainly when you, or before you came to any of your conclusions, you had met with law enforcement and the prosecution, correct?
So I met with law enforcement because I rely on law enforcement in their investigation when I'm determining manner of death. So it's very important that I know the circumstances of the case.
And that is where you learned she had no history of drug use, right?
The history that we discussed, yes.
The history, see, she's trying to twist around again. This is a terrible lawyering opinion. Terrible. You can't lose credibility in front of a jury. As a trial attorney, you have to be the most credible attorney, because the other side invariably is going to have something they get tripped up on. Usually prosecutors are not going to do that so much. Usually it's always the defense counsel because they're the ones that got the uphill climb, and most of their clients are going to be guilty. So anyway, it's just very, very,
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, Dr. Carney, your cause of death
it's just very troubling to see that kind of thing going on.
was not based off of the meetings with anyone, it was just the manner of death, is that right?
Correct. So the cause of death is something I'll determine through the autopsy and the toxicology and the histology, the looking at the slides, all the work that I do on my end. I really refer to the investigation for manner of death.
Any other questions?
Okay, so the thing is, this question about turned off by Texas expert witnesses. Yeah, there's going to be some on there that are turned off by that. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and I want to play this 911 call. I don't think I had the best version of it the other night when I played it. So stand by here, please. And I just want to end with this because the prosecution needs to play this. If they don't, it's another thing that they're doing a misstep on. Okay, let's see here. Boy, this StreamYard's all jacked up. Sorry. Okay. StreamYard keeps changing their format, and it's just really impossible to sometimes deal with. I'm trying to switch the layout so I'm not solo, and I don't have any options. Wow, that's weird. Let's see here. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and play this, folks. I don't know what the screen looks like right now, but I'm about on this my screen. I'm about 1 inch by inch, and I can't even see the court TV screen right now on my main screen. The StreamYard one. That's how jacked up it is. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I hit something. Something's going on here. Wow. Okay. Can you guys hear that? Okay, no video or audio. Yeah.
Saturday, February 25.
Something's going on, guys. I'm getting some kind of virus or something. Hold on. I can't even open my mail. Wow. My mouse, okay. I cannot open it. I cannot open my mail at all. Wow, that's
Saturday, February 25, 2023, 21:38 and 58 seconds.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
I'm not sure if I'm
It's muting on its own. That's weird.
I'm at a friend's house and I think she's having an allergic reaction.
What's the address of Bubbles if there's no way you can find her?
I don't know, it's an apartment complex.
Is there a mail with her?
But the account, I'm looking around, I'm just giving that I'm looking around. I don't know what's going on. I think she just.
I don't know what's going on. He's trying to deflect, right? He's trying to deflect. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know. Yeah, he's just playing dumb. No, he's in a crisis mode here. Jade and the baby are on their way to being dead in minutes without medical intervention. And this is how this guy acts? Really? Really, this is credible? This is what this guy can do? 28-year-old former football player. That's all the assistance he can give? Is this weak, pathetic statement on this phone? No sense of urgency?
Look at them here. I looked around Lebanon. Yeah, Lebanon. It's apartment 107. What is it? Is it 1540 Lebanon Pike? I don't know. It's not Burger King. I didn't know that. Let me look at. I'm going to find the building to get the.
Did he say Gallatin Pike? I couldn't hear that. So, yeah, mixing up Gallatin and Lebanon. Gallatin is another big street, Gallatin Pike. So I remember hearing that name traveling through and around Nashville. So.
At the condo slash apartment.
It's a condo-like apartment. He's stalling. I'm telling you, so anybody that lives in Nashville, if they don't get this on the jury, they need to play this to remind them from all this rope-a-dope toxicology garbage we've been listening to for a couple days now.
Okay, is there a mouthful in the corner there, sir? Is there a what? A mouthful in the corner? I'm not sure. The Ontario, 1522-1550 Lebanon Pike, the Ontario. 1522? Yes. The Ontario, 1522-1550 Lebanon Pike. So the Ontario 1522.
Yes, the attorney's trying to look busy. Oh, this sounds really bad for our client. Let's look like we're talking and we're not having to. Jury can't read our expressions and how bad this is coming across. Because think about it, the jury's right across from him, and they're looking at him, and they're looking at him, the defendant, while this is being played to see. How's he responding? Not only on this call, but how's he responding right now? Look what he's doing. I wish the prosecutor was out of the way there. He's just looking down. Doesn't want to make eye contact with the jury.
I don't know. I think she's having a allergic reaction. We were getting cookies and training, and then she said she wasn't feeling good. And I went back to the room to check on her. No, and once the kids get disconnected while you're up there, once the callback number gets disconnected.
So think about it. He's doing this, and you don't hear Jade in the background, right? And Jade's already not been able to finish her call with Nigea. So guess what this means? He waited all this time before he called. That's what they got to nail on closing.
Even on 573, yeah. Okay, how old is he? 23, 24. Okay, is she awake right now? Yes. Okay. And you think she's having allergic reaction to food? I don't know. We got cookies and pasta. I don't know what she's doing.
So he's saying, I don't know, because, he doesn't want to say exactly it is that, right? In case they find other stuff. It's just make a statement, deflect, say, I don't know, play dumb.
I didn't do anything today or anything, but everything was fine, and then I don't know what's happening. So we got things going on, and she's shaking. So you think it's possibly a reaction to not knowing food, is that right? I think so, I don't know. I don't think she's allergic to anything, I don't know. I don't think she is or not. It could be an allergic reaction. So are you next door? Yes, sir? Yeah.
So she's allergic to a meal she made, right? So he said, I think we made, right? He said we were making. Okay, well, then you put some of the ingredients in there, didn't you?
Okay, does she hear you breathing normally? Yeah. Okay, does she have any difficulty swallowing? I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, yeah, because she's dead.
Yeah. Okay, does she have any difficulty swallowing? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Okay.
You start to say, I didn't ask, you know, he's not wanting to say how bad of a condition she's in, I think, is what it sounds like.
Is she awake? Yeah, she's awake. Okay. So
Really? She's awake? How can you tell she's awake?
can you just gently roll her onto her side right now? Yeah, she's on the side. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because if she's having like vomit or anything else that's coming out right now, so you just keep her onto her side right now. You can finger squeeze any out, only what you can see of her patient's mouth. Okay. And you can wipe her mouth. Okay. Hello, sir. Hello? Yeah, I'm in the town. Oh, I'm in the town. Okay. Okay. Can you ask?
I mean, he does sound like he's panicky, like he's about to have some world of hurt coming his way, like he really messed up. But you know what? When he realized she's like dropping dead back right before his eyes, he didn't do anything to rapidly save her. It was stall. What would have happened if he didn't know and learn about Jade reaching out to Najaya, that phone call? What if he didn't know about the phone call and then he walks in and sees her talking on the phone and she collapsed right there? If she wasn't on the phone call, what would have happened? How would this have turned out different? Would he just taken off? What do you guys think?
If she's having difficulty swallowing or feeling any swelling in her lips or throat or face, anything like that? No.
Yeah, it never says she's pregnant here, right? It's only when the EMTs are there and it's so obvious she's pregnant, then they ask, well, how pregnant is she? Probably is how that came about, I bet.
Okay, she's really close to home. I think one of her friends is on the way. Okay. I don't know what to do. Oh, is there anything else I should be doing? Okay, and then does she have an EpiPen? Do you have an EpiPen? Do you have an EpiPen? I don't think.
He's acting like she's able to respond. You don't hear her responding at all. He's trying to dupe the EMT guy or the 911 dispatcher.
I don't think so. She's not responding. Okay, and one of the, so other than her just feeling kind of weak and passing out, does she have any other symptoms right now? No, she's, no, I mean, she's pretty relaxed, she's right on the side. Okay. Okay, does she appear to have any rash or hives anywhere on her body that you can see? Not that I can see, and she looks, I don't see anything on her legs or on her arms, so she looks fine. Okay. And does her condition look to be any worse? I don't think so. I don't really know how to tell. Okay, no, it's just like, because if she's ever looked at reaction, a lot of times the grass highs, it'll be redness, her dental test could be getting worse, or breathing. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Okay. All right, so we already have help on the way. So, okay, so Frank,
Look busy. Shuffle papers at the defense table. Defendant, look down. Don't look up. They can't look at your eyes bouncing around.
you trying to stay on the line, or what do I do? So I'm just going to give you the instructions. But do you need me to stay on the line with you until the paramedics are sir? Well, is there anything else I have to be doing? I don't think it's got, I think there's nothing else. Yeah, so, I don't know. Yeah, because so right now, because she's awakening, and we're describing she's moving air freely. She's not struggling to breathe, or wheezing, or gunning or anything like that. No, but it looks like she's falling up some. Something. Yeah, so you can go work for now. Okay, I did. I'm up and I'm out. Okay. Yeah, she's really moving air. It's like, does it look like she's freely moving air? Yeah, she's breathing, yeah. Okay.
She's not breathing. I don't believe that at all.
We're just gonna keep her on her left side right now. We're just trying to keep all that super comfortable right there, okay? Okay. All right, so just right now, nothing for any ear Frank. Just keep her in that comfortable position right now. So you have her medication there for the paramedics if she has any with her. Make sure you don't. I don't know if she has any medication to be on. No, that's okay, sir. And then just be at the door to let the fireman in. And if you look around and see this peak now, I just want to make sure, because the building that they're describing has two separate addresses. But I want to make sure they're all the same one. I don't think you have any. I mean, she got a mailbox. I don't, but it's not like it's an apartment, so it's not. I think it's more of a PO box. I don't know if she keeps her mail. I don't even know if she's on. I'm not sure. Are you in the, because it looks like based off what you're describing, are you in the main of the large building or the smaller one? I would guess the main larger one. I mean, there's multiple floors, multiple stories. Okay, because it looks like on the map I'm looking at, it looks like 1540 is for the large building, and 1522 or 1532 is the small ones that are right next to the street. You're the big one? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Okay. No, so all of that is to continue to monitor.
I mean, I think that if I was a 911 dispatcher talking to this guy, I'm thinking, okay, she's stabilized, she's breathing, but yeah, you're saying she's breathing better, really? No, that's not possible. And think about it. The prosecution failed to ask these questions if that's possible for her to be breathing better once she's ingested this cocaine, this elephant amount of cocaine. There's no way they would say, yeah, she would have gotten better. Prove this guy to be the liar. And they're not doing that.
We get a local process for any changes. So if anything else changes, call us back. But there are at the 1540, left somebody over in Hermitage. And she's in apartment 107. Cross street and spent on Cliff Way, Spence Way at the Ontario, okay? Yes, okay. All right, so if anything changes before they arrive, give us a call back, and she'll be arriving there as quickly as they can, okay? Okay. All right, I think I'm here. Okay, that's awesome. All right, thank you so much. Okay, you're welcome.
Good point.
All right.
Yep, that's another trickster scheme by the defense saying that Jade was stable. Yeah, right.
Of course, you can pass those documents.
Okay, so there you go, folks. They better nail it tomorrow on their closing and include this. Put it fresh in the jury's mind. Boy, the streamer is still messed up. Let's see. Okay. Anyway, let me see if there's any last questions here. Thanks, Sherry D, for your wishes. Yeah, I don't think defense want to dare put the dad on the stand. He knows too much. Yeah. I wish the prosecution would do stuff to bring out that more, to talk about where this relationship was with Xavier. It sounded like he's been dating her for a long time. So I'd like to know more details. If I was a prosecutor, I'd focus more on those kind of details to make it look like he's setting up Jade like a bowling pin for the termination. So anyway, all right, I'm going to wrap it up tonight. So let's just pray that the justice happens tomorrow, that the prosecution does a great job, and the confusion camp, that they trip up tomorrow, and that the jury gets it right, that they see the truth of what's going on. So justice for Jade and Ivy. And I plan to be here tomorrow as well. And don't know the time yet tomorrow, but should be no later than 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So thanks for your support. Take care and have a good night.